I blocked my aunt and cousin to stop their harassment after my partner and I refused to give up our baby for adoption. I am 8 months along in my pregnancy, 24F, and ever since I told my aunt and cousin, they have been causing me problems. We already love our girl, and neither my spouse nor I intend to part with her. However, my aunt wants me to give my cousin, who has been infertile for the previous 5 years, my child. To put that in perspective, my aunt has been a motherly role to my sister and me since our mother died when we were very little. Throughout our lives, we have maintained a close relationship with our aunt and cousin, and we have made an effort to help my cousin during her infertility issues. Being a Mormon who frequently goes to church and has a strict, narrow-minded perspective on morality, values, and leading a decent life, my aunt is also highly religious. According to her, a child should have a loving, caring mother, a father who provides for them, and a solid religious foundation. My spouse feels that my child will grow up in our home confused and misinformed because we both have full-time jobs and occupations and she is not a Christian. She claims that the child won't have the right care and identity because of our differing religious beliefs. She worries that in such a setting, our child's welfare won't be given priority and that they might choose a bad, immoral route. She feels that my cousin, who works from home part-time, and her spouse are far more qualified to give my child a caring household that is infused with religion and morals. My cousin and aunt have moved to a new house where they are unaware of the address, and I have blocked them from most forms of communication. To be sure they won't have any influence over my medical choices, my boyfriend and I also got married in a private ceremony. My aunt has been more hostile to me than the other one. She even yelled and argued when she arrived at my former flat one day in an attempt to teach me about the circumstances. She tried to get me to meet her at a cafe close to her church so we could talk about the baby in a phony, nice voice. She persisted even after I told her that we had nothing to talk about and that I was keeping the baby. Eventually, I had to tell the apartment manager and hide in my flat. It took her around 30 minutes to leave. Additionally, my aunt has involved her religious acquaintances, who occasionally leave me angry voicemails and texts. In contrast, my cousin has been more reserved around me, but she is dealing with trauma and despair following the preterm labor that resulted in the death of her baby daughter at 30 weeks of pregnancy. She has been participating in motherhood-related forums and commenting frequently on social media. Rumor has it, though, that she has been attempting to conceive through these groups and has been expelled from numerous of them as a result of her actions. She has been accused of pressuring widows and young moms for their children, which has devastated her. My cousin, who sees my baby girl as a replacement for her late child, is reportedly waiting for me to give birth because she is yearning for a child to fix her family. My aunt and cousin both seem to think that I will eventually give up my child because I will become overburdened with parental duties. They believe that I will allow my cousin to be adopted by her husband. My aunt maintains that I may have another child in the future and claims that since we are family, delivering my kid to my cousin shouldn't be as difficult as it may be. She thinks that since I'm still young and intend to go to graduate school after working for a time, this should be a simple decision. It seems like my cousin wants to get back in touch with me like we did before I became pregnant. But I'm not going to talk to her again until after I give birth. This is to assess her emotional state and avoid adding to my pregnant stress. Growing up, I liked her more than my aunt and had always been there for her during her infertility ordeal. However, her recent actions and thoughts have startled me and caused me to worry about my safety. Since we got married in secret this year, my partner and I are organizing a large wedding celebration for next year. I'm not sure if my aunt or cousin would be able to make it or be invited. Aside from people who are close to my aunt and cousin, I currently get a lot of support from both sides of my family. In a year though, I'm not sure if that support will still be there or how my relationship with my aunt and cousin will change. I have missed a few family occasions that I knew they would be at, but I don't want to permanently miss out on pleasant times and family get-togethers. After my baby is born, I'm not sure how things will work out with my aunt and cousin and what problems might result from this circumstance. I was raised in a culture that viewed starting a family and having children as a reward for leading a morally upright life. Even if you were truly having difficulties, you were rarely given judgment-free assistance and were frequently harshly criticized for any perceived flaws. Adoptions were a big part of my church's work, and I think they still are. The birth mothers were frequently young, unmarried, single, or in some other way viewed as ungodly. If birth moms decided to raise their children, the church would intimidate and stress them regarding their future and the fate of their offspring. These infants were frequently given to Mormon couples who were unable to conceive or who wished to look altruistic by saving an innocent child and providing the biological mother with an opportunity to fix her life and lead a fulfilling life. I am now extremely cautious of this practice since it terrifies me. First adoption update: my aunt and cousin, who are also active members, and I spoke with a local church head about the matter. After a lengthy conversation, he first disregarded my worries as family disputes and recommended that I seek counseling. We told him about my cousin's false dreams of adopting my baby, whom she feels would grow up in a decent household, and how she is still struggling with the trauma of the death of her baby. We also informed him of the serious disruption and stress my aunt has been inflicting by feeding into these hopes and nagging me on her behalf. The pastor of the church expressed empathy for me and admitted that he knew what my cousin was going through because she couldn't conceive. He promised to get in touch with my aunt and cousin to find out their version of events. I had another conversation with him today. He was worried that I had stopped talking to my aunt and cousin, especially since I moved away, and claimed they would like to talk to me. I questioned him about what they had said and told him that their actions with regard to my baby had influenced my choice to break off communication. He said that because of her health, my cousin's IVF treatments are unlikely to be successful, therefore she had talked to a church therapist and was considering adoption as a way to have a family. Despite what my cousin had been thinking, I made it clear to him that I was not giving up my kid. After stating that he understood, he started to inquire about my personal situation. He then recommended that we seek therapy services and made another attempt to arrange a meeting between us and my aunt and cousin. I informed him that just now, I didn't feel comfortable with that. He suggested that I at least give my cousin a call once, and if I was too afraid to do it myself, he would meet with my aunt on Sunday. That was the end of our call. In the upcoming days, I'll update this site with his comments. Change. Since I don't want to make a completely new post for it, I will also change this one to make updates easier to discover. Edit. I don't like his response, and I don't like the pressure he's giving me to get back in touch with my aunt and cousin. Even though he claims to understand my worries, I think he is being condescending and attempting to pressure us to settle our differences too soon. Since he has religious authority and influence over my aunt and cousin, my boyfriend and I first decided it would be worthwhile to try to get in touch with him. When we speak on the phone again, I'll listen to his response and figure out how to get him to give my concerns more weight. To be clear, I didn't give him any personal information, and I don't have any intentions to see my aunt and cousin in person. We do not reside in Utah, and we have already gotten in touch with legal assistance. Update 2, I made the decision to message and unblock my cousin. I informed her that there would be no discussion about my partner and I keeping our child. I made it plain that I don't feel comfortable with her, her husband, or my aunt being part in my child's life and urged her to get good therapy if she hasn't already. She still hasn't replied. No matter what she says, she will no longer be involved in my child's life, and our connection will not be the same as it was. Third update. The birth of my kid and other endeavors while I heal and take care of her have kept me quite busy over the past 3 months. I hadn't had a chance to update until now, despite logging on to Reddit a few times. My baby is almost 4 months old, and I am currently 25. Time goes by so quickly. She is doing great and makes us very happy. She is maturing so quickly, and I enjoy taking walks with her. I have begun my job search and intend to return to work shortly. I appreciate all of your best wishes and concerns. I hope the Thanksgiving holiday season is going well for everyone. Here is the long-awaited update regarding my cousin and aunt. My aunt and cousin have been quiet since my last update. My aunt contacted me in August using a different phone after my cousin failed to reply to my SMS. She inquired about my health and whether I had given birth yet. She expressed concern for my babies and my well-being during our brief conversation because I had cut off a lot of contact with my family and quit my work. My aunt told me that they had been attempting to adopt a child through their church ties but had not yet been successful, most likely because they had only recently begun the process. When I inquired about my cousin, my aunt said that my cousin's husband's past would be an issue when I questioned if they had spoken with a legitimate adoption agency. My aunt went on to talk about how the white birth rate is declining and how people are purposefully avoiding motherhood, something I was unaware of. Then she became upset, bringing up irrelevant subjects like 9th-month abortions, and asked if I still wanted the baby. She is a staunch pro-lifer. I told her again that I really wanted to keep my child. She went on to discuss how my cousin, who was in her early 30s, was growing older and how her nest was still empty. My aunt wanted me to at least share the joy by letting my cousin spend time with and be a part of my daughter's life. I informed her that because of their previous actions, this would not be feasible. I was afraid my cousin would attempt to play the part of a mother and let her illusions to take over once more. I refused to accept my aunt's insistence that my cousin was attempting to better herself and had received church therapy. She went on to ask if I knew of any resources or people who might be interested in adopting a child. I informed her that I didn't and suggested that my cousin and her spouse exercise caution and patience while they prepare to become parents. Given that everyone around them is hitting motherhood milestones, my aunt stressed how crucial it was for my cousin and her husband to have children, not just because they deserve them, but also for their reputation. She pushed me on when I might have my next child and changed the topic to my future family plans. After this surprise pregnancy, my aunt informed me that family planning was crucial and asked if she and my cousin might be involved the next time. I became weary of the talk as the call continued and her typical behavior became more noticeable. Thank goodness, she ended the call before me because she had an event to attend. I like that my sister is there to inform me of any updates pertaining to my former church as well as what's going on with my aunt, cousin, and other family issues. My sister said my aunt was telling the truth about my cousin. Although my cousin still has severe depressed episodes, her general mental health appears to have considerably improved from her worst moments. Her lack of children and her tense relationships with my sister and myself might make her feel extremely empty at times. Since many of their local alternatives have closed, my cousin and her husband are also looking into the possibilities of finding an IVF doctor overseas in the hopes of a miracle. My cousin seems to still think of my kid as something she lost, but she has been pleading for forgiveness of her sins and hopes that God will soon provide her children. For obvious reasons, my side of the family and I have opted to miss Thanksgiving in a few days. I intend to go back to work shortly, most likely following the holidays. I've already made daycare plans and taken all the required safety measures. All things considered, the future appears bright once more. I appreciate your support, everyone. If you have any questions concerning parenting, Mormonism, my family, etc., please contact me. An intriguing aside would be that my aunt has expressed her readiness for the grandma life, and has taken a strong interest in my cousin's family starting endeavors. When we were younger, my aunt also said that because my sister and I lost our mother when we were very little, she would be like a grandmother to our future children. She must not be as excited about us as she once was. I watched my husband marry my best friend while texting me working late, unraveling decades of lies to discover the truth. The text message shining in my car's darkness was St. 2 p.m. Mary's Church. You have to see this. Unknown count. My hand shook as I held the steering wheel and watched visitors pass past my rain-streaked glass inside the ancient stone edifice. Right now, Eleanor, a cut-rate private investigator, is waiting in my car wondering if I have finally lost my mind. Ryan, my spouse, reported to me he had a business conference in Chicago. The calendar read something like that. His secretary verified that as well. The hotel reservation revealed just that. But here I am, parked across from a Boston church since some stranger chose to act as guardian angel, or demon. I haven't made any decisions yet. This is crazy, I said to myself, but I'm already grabbing my sunglasses. As I get out of my car, heels clicking against damp ground, the church bells begin their sad call. Every stride seems like me moving toward my own execution. I slide in through the side door and settle behind a marble pillar. I smell lies and incense, and for a second I find myself back 7 years ago on my own wedding day. Same church, different dreams. My heart stops when the organ begins to play. He is because there he is. Ryan's. My Ryan here. Hands clasped in front of him, that familiar anxious tick in his jaw, standing at the altar in a tuxedo I have never seen before. Chicago is not where he resides. Here he is. The bride shows up at the door, and the ground moves underfoot. Extended dark hair, olive-based skin, that elegant walk I would know anywhere. Megan. My friend from 3rd grade, best buddy. The woman who guided me in selecting my own wedding gown. Dearly beloved. As I watch them exchange vows, the priest's words vanish into white noise. Promising to love each other till death, my spouse and best buddy part. As he assured me. Like we all vowed to each other when we were young, buddies always, no secrets, no lies. I recall not leaving the chapel. The drive home is not clear from memory, but I recall the deciding moment. Sitting in our ideal, magazine-worthy kitchen, which Ryan insisted on redoing last year, I watched the sunset through windows that unexpectedly seemed like prison bars. There is buzz on my phone. Ryan. Running late for a conference, don't hold back. I grab his preferred scotch, the one he saves for special events. As I swallow, the liquid burns my throat and I relish the suffering. Unlike all else in my life, it is real. Still another text from the unidentified number. Now you know. Regarding that, what are your plans? What am I going to do? I laugh. It sounds strange to me. Sharp, hazardous, like smashing glass. Opening my laptop, I begin to type. Dear Laura, with any luck, this email reaches you. I had been considering organizing that family reunion you have always wanted. Because betrayal is exactly that. It's about the complex dance of falsehoods that preceded it, not only about the deed itself. The deftly created alibis. The grins that have been taught. The little touches that were meaningless. And Ryan, my lovely, beautiful Ryan, has always danced rather well. But thus have I as well. I sip another scotch and grin. Let their honeymoon take place. Let them believe they are winners. Time is on my side. And I possess something higher than their adoration. I possess their faith. The sun sets totally, darkening me. For the first time today though, I can see everything clearly. Each page of the old photo album seems weighty on my lap, memories I no longer trust weighing me. Ryan, Megan, and I at 16 are spread out on my parents' yard. Ryan's arm circles both of us as we chuckle at some old joke. Like everything else about that summer, the corners of the picture show where Ryan from downstairs phones, I ordered Chinese. His footfalls each make my skin crawl in our residence. 3 days after his second wedding, he has been home behaving as though nothing had changed. That he did not simply destroy all we had created. As he walks into our bedroom with 2 plates of food I won't eat, I close the album. Remember when we used to get takeout with Megan every Friday? The words fly from my mouth before I could stop them, sharp as broken glass. Ryan's grin falls short of directly reaching his eyes. That was a lifetime ago. Was it? I get up and let the album thump to the floor with pleasant resonance. Because she looked exactly the same 3 days ago. Just for a moment, his chopstick stopped midway to his mouth. Blink would cause you to miss it. Still, I see it. I am catching everything right now. Eleanor. He sets down his plate and approaches me with the same worried look he used on challenging clients. Has your drinking been? I chuckle. It sounds like the laughter of my mother following Dad's departure. That is your move? Gaslight the wife into thinking she is crazy? His hand reaches for mine as he replies. I'm worried about you. I pull back. When did it start? Burns my throat. Was it before our wedding? During? Tell me, Ryan. Was I the backup plan or the cover story? You're not making any sense, he replies, but his left hand quickly sits. His tell when he lies. I have spent 7 years mastering his rhythms and compiling his routines. Funny how precisely you perceive things when you're searching for the holes. I was at St. Mary's on Tuesday. Words like smoke hang between us. Nice tux, by the way. Better than the one you wore at our wedding. The mask slides, just for a moment, but it's plenty. His eyes turn cold and calculated. The Ryan I never let myself see is this one. It is not what you think. Don't. My voice is not trembling. I take great satisfaction in that. Don't offend me with excuses. I watched you marry my best friend while I was supposed to be your loving wife at home. What exactly should I think? Another clue as he rubs his hands through his hair. It's complicated, you don't grasp some of it. Like what? The joint bank accounts you opened? The property you bought together? Alternatively, maybe the fact your mother knew the whole time? That renders him unable. How could you? I go to the drawer and pull out the stack of papers I have gathered over the past 3 days. I am not the moron you believe me to be. You should really use better passwords than our anniversary date, though I guess that's meaningless now. Eleanor, please? He grabs for the docs. I control them. We can work this out, I will explain everything. Like you explained your business trip to Chicago? I laid the papers, bank statements, property titles, emails, on the bed. Or should we talk about the trust fund Laura established for your children with Megan? His face turns white. You had no right, said. I had every right. Raw and primitive, the stream tears from my throat. I am your wife. I was your friend. We grew up together. All 3 of us, and you. I pause, breathing hard. He is looking at me as though he has never seen me before. Perhaps he never did. Perhaps I never really seen myself either. Get out. Right now, my voice is solid, definite. Likewise is true with my residence. Not now. One last document I retain is a power of attorney signed last year when he was too busy managing our estate plan. You ought to really read what you sign, Ryan. Now get out before I call Michael and have him escort you out. He bolts. Not out of fear, but rather because he understands this is a starting point. For that he knows me sufficiently. From the floor, I grab the photo album and use my finger to follow our younger faces. We seem to be naive and rather joyful. Such outstanding liars, every one of us. The cafe Megan and I used to keep secrets in seems smaller now. Perhaps that is the weight of what I am about to undertake. Alternatively, maybe everything from my past is diminishing and losing relevance with every fresh betrayal I come across. Still sporting the twin of her wedding band, Megan glides into the seat across from me. Seeing it tastes like acid in my coffee, she adds, her fingers tensely stroking the rim of her unethered latte. I didn't think you would come. Funny. I didn't you'd marry my husband. The words come out softer than I intended, which somehow makes them cut deeper. She stumbles. Eleanor. I slide the bank statements across the table like cards in a rigged game. Did you know about the trust fund? The one Laura configured for next generations? Her face loses hue, not from remorse but from wrath. Quite interesting. What trust fund? That is indeed surprising now. Her hands quivering slightly, I watch her go over the papers. $3 million, I say. Set aside for the grandchildren Laura always wanted. Guess I was not producing them fast enough. This can't be right. Megan pulls the contaminated-looking papers away. Ryan said the marriage was only a formality for his inheritance. He said. I chuckle and it sounds like shattered glass. That he loved you, Megan? That I was cold, distant, career-obsessed? That's exactly what he told his mother about me last month. She stares fiercely. How come you aware of that? Because I have spent the last week learning just how completely my husband, our husband, has been playing us both. The waiter walks over, but we both wave him away without looking up. There is more, I said, pulling out my phone. Want to hear Ryan talking about property investments with Laura? The ones using your family's real estate contacts? Megan's voice falters as my family's? Ryan knew well before he ever asked her out that her mother, Grace, runs one of the biggest real estate companies in Boston. Did you ever wonder why he chose us? Asks the question hanging between us like fog. The two best friends who'd never bet each other. The perfect cover story. Stop. Megan gets up fast and her chair scrapes the floor. I understand you trying to hurt me since I hurt you. I deserve it, but... Sit down. My voice never changes. The best portion hasn't yet been heard. She sits, more from shock at my voice than from compliance. Remember that summer internship Ryan helped you get at Grace's firm? The one that convinced your mother he was such a wonderful guy? I slipped one more document across the table. Look at the date on that property transfer. Her hands shake as she reads. This is the signature of my mother, but she would never sell her prime investment property for half its worth. She had no idea she did. Check the signatures of the witnesses. Megan recognizes her own handwriting and crumples her face. I was just notarizing documents. Ryan said it was practice for my license, while I was planning our wedding. You were unintentionally helping him steal from your own mother. The truth tastes terrible on my mouth. He played us both, Megan. The only difference was that I worked it out before he could take everything. For the first time since she sat down, she glances up at me, very definitely stares at me. What are you going to do? I get to stand and gather the paperwork. Invalid question. The actual one is, what are we going to do? I draw one last item, a USB disk with what I have found, and say, you have two choices. Keep playing his game and lose everything, or help me take him down. Your mother's company, my savings, Laura's reputation. He's built his entire plan on the presumption that we would never compare notes. Megan fixes her eyes on the drive as though it could bite. If this gets out, everything burns. I run my palm over hers and feel the matching wedding band. But we will be the ones holding the matches this time. She tightens her fingers over the disc, and I catch a flash of the buddy I used to know. Fierce, devoted, relentless when crossed. When should we begin? I smile and it feels true for the first time in weeks. Our already have. From the kitchen counter, 3 empty wine bottles mock me. Not my typical poison, but tonight is not usual. Ryan's workplace papers are scattered around our dining room table, our wedding present from Laura, like bits of a jigsaw I never wanted to solve. Another Ryan message on my phone brightens it. Please let us discuss this sensibly. Logical. Like the method he erected this palace of lies? Like the deliberate accuracy with which he decided on his marks? Once more buzzing as the phone. Megan, this one time. Grace is inquiring, we must get going more quickly. I turn it off, but my hands continue to shingle. The scope of what we intend at last strikes me. This goes beyond simply calling attention to Ryan now. We are discussing ruining families, names, life. The doorbell sounds. I wonder momentarily about ignoring it. Then, though, I hear the key in the lock. Ryan is the only person with that key except one other. Michael walks into the dining room and absorbs the anarchy. Jesus, Eli? When's the last time you slept? I faintly point at the papers. Did you know Ryan's father committed himself? Michael goes still. What? I pull out the newspaper clipping I discovered hidden in Laura's bank records 10 years ago, right after Ryan graduated law school. Officially, it was a hunting accident. Unofficially, I push forward a stack of bank records. He found Laura and Ryan had been embezzling years from his company. Christ. Michael settles onto a chair. Does everyone else know? Just the person who has been sending me anonymous tips. I tap the table burner phone. They sent me this today. I slipped over duplicates of William Mitchell's suicide note. He tried to expose them, Michael. He tried to stop them, and they... My voice failures. Michael reaches for my hand. Eli, but I back off. I'm becoming them. The words taste like ash. I'm turning into exactly what I hate from all these plans for revenge, for justice. No, you're not. Michael says with stern voice. You're shielding Megan's company, your future, Grace's. Am I? I get up, moving slowly. Or am I just so focused on destroying Ryan that I don't care who gets caught in the crossfire? Because right now, I'm seated here planning to expose everything at the family reunion, knowing it will devastate people who had nothing to do with this. Like someone? I grab one of the wine bottles, not caring that it's empty. Like Ryan's sister's kids, who'll lose their college money when I uncover Laura's financial machinations, Grace's staff might lose their jobs should the company's reputation suffer. Like William Mitchell, who died trying to do the right thing, while I plot complex revenge scenarios like some comic book villain. Michael pauses silently for a protracted length of time. He stands up, then grabs the bottle from my hand. You wish to know how you differ from them? I turn aside, but he keeps on. You're torturing yourself about the moral consequences of your actions here at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're sleeping peacefully, counting their money and planning their next con. That does not make it right. No, it doesn't. He begins systematically gathering and sorting the documents. But it means you have a choice. You can expose everything dramatically at the reunion, as you planned, or what? Or we do this the right way, legally, carefully. William Mitchell's suicide note is here, he said. We finish what Ryan's father started, but we do it smart. We first guard the innocent parties. Another message from the unknown source comes from the burner phone buzzing. Inquire of Laura about the offshore accounts. I fix my eyes on the message, then on the anarchy all over my dining room table. 7 years of marriage, a lifetime of friendliness, generations of lies, all leading to this moment. I say at last, okay. Show me how I should do this right. Michael nods and gets out his phone. First, we should speak with a financial fraud expert. I know a man. I hold his arm and wait. Before we do this, I need know something. Are you helping me because I'm right or just because I'm your sister? He fixes my gaze consistently. Both and neither. I'm helping you since someone needs to stop them and you're strong enough to do it without becoming them. I examine the empty wine bottles, the strewn papers, the proof of my almost plunge into their realm of control and retribution. He may be right. Perhaps another method to burn it all down is here. Michael's friend, a lawyer, keeps chatting, but I fixed on the one single sheet of paper in front of me, a name list. Mainly children. Trustees of which our scheme would fall apart if we carried on. The offshore accounts are just the beginning, James Harrison continues, distributing more papers over his mahogany desk. Laura Mitchell's financial web runs at least 3 generations of both families. How many people would be affected? My voice sounds far even to myself. Directly, roughly 30, indirectly. He shrugs. We're talking about tearing down a decades-long program. The knock-on effects might affect hundreds. Michael forward leans. But we can prove the fraud readily. The issue is whether we should. James runs over the name list. Some of these trust funds are supporting education and medical treatment. I get up quickly and head to the window. Stop. Boston spreads out below, unconcerned about the bomb we are about to blow. Another way has to be found. There is buzz on my phone. Megan. Grace came upon the missing property records. Michael adds, reading across my shoulder. She's calling Laura today. We're running out of time. Anyhow, everything falls apart if Grace confronts Laura straight. I then go back to James. How long would it take to get protection for the innocent parties? Weeks, maybe months. We would want. The door of the office explodes open. Laura Mitchell is there, always flawless, but her eyes are crazy. I should have known you'd run to Michael, she says, sneers. James begins. How did you? My daughter works in your building, James. Did Eleanor tell you that part? How many families she's ready to destroy for her revenge? That's rich coming from you, Michael adds, standing and straying between us. Laura pays me more attention than him. You think you're protecting people? William thought the same thing. Look where that got him. The chamber falls quiet. Even the metropolitan noise appears to fade. What did you just say? My hands, knuckles white, clutch the rear of the chair. Oh, did your anonymous friend tell you everything? Laura asks with a stern smile. William tried to fix our plans, rerouting money to safeguard the beneficiaries, just as you are planning. He did not just discover them. And you stopped him. The bits fit together. The hunting accident was... She says just that, then pauses. An accident. Her eyes dart away. The point is, Eleanor, some buildings cannot be taken down without destroying everything they support. You're not just fighting Ryan or me, you're fighting generations of carefully balanced arrangements. I spit, arrangements built on lies and theft. Built on necessity, she says, getting closer. Did Ryan tell you why he married you? Your family's 3 generations of judges and prosecutors, 3 generations of perfect shield. Once more buzz comes from my phone. On the screen Grace's name shows. Take the call, Laura urges gently. Listen to Grace, discover what her daughter's been hiding, watch another family break, or... She pulls out an envelope. We might talk about substitutes. Michael says, Eli, don't. What alternatives? My voice is firm but my heart bangs against my ribs. Laura says, a clean break. A generous settlement. The innocent parties stay protected. Laura lays the envelope on James's desk. Everyone wins. Michael says, everyone except Justice, quickly. Laura chuckle. Ask Eleanor what she actually wants, justice or peace. My phone keeps vibrating. These days, Megan's messages complement Grace's calls. From the desk, the nameless stares up at me. Children, families, futures. How long do I have to decide? The words taste like surrender. Laura steps to the door. Until Grace finishes reading those papers. Choose deliberately, Eleanor. Unlike William, you still have options. She goes, and the office seems both bigger and more stifling. You cannot seriously be thinking about this, Michael says. I pick up the nameless then my still buzzing phone. What if her right is what if trying to correct this just makes everything worse? Not justice, but that's fear talking. Maybe. I glance at James. But what if terror is trying to convey something vital? One last time the phone buzzes, then goes quiet. It is too late to stop whatever Grace found now. I pick Laura's envelope and feel the weight of choices not yet taken. I need to talk to Megan, I say at last, before we decide anything else. Because sometimes, I continue, I'm learning revenge isn't about who you're willing to hurt but who you're willing to spare. Before me sits the Mitchell family estate, its windows shining like evening caution signals. All the actors gathered for what they believe to be a surprise anniversary party for Laura and her second husband. Cars fill the circular driveway. Michael says, standing next to me and clutching the bag full of all the evidence, every paper, every recording, last chance to back out. Megan appears at my other shoulder and says, they're already inside, her voice taut. Grace is with them, Ryan is watching the door like a hawk. I change my black dress, funeral suitable, though they are not yet aware of it. Did you check the exits? James has people stationed at every door, Michael says, glancing at his watch. No one leaves until everything's disclosed once you start. Laura's envelope weighs against my ribs, nestled into my garment. Her offer of silence, of protection for the innocent, weighs against me. Still not opened. Still conceivable. We arrive in the kitchen, where caterers are busy without realizing they are presenting Mitchell Dynasty Last Supper. Ryan finds me right away. His face flickers between skepticism and relief. Eleanor. He comes near me carrying a champagne glass. I didn't suppose you would show up? And Miss Laura's party? My smile feels like broken glass. Would not dream of it. His gaze flies to Megan, to Michael, to the briefcase. I see the instant he discovers something is wrong, but Laura's voice breaks through the hushes of discussion. Everyone, kindly collect in the main hall. The audience moves, carrying with it us. I notice flashes of familiar faces. Grace, pale but understated. Laura's second husband, blind and radiant. Ryan's sister, gripping hands of her children. The young ones. God. The sons. Laura pulls out her glass. Thanks all for showing up to... Actually, I forward, my voice carrying across the unexpected silence. I'd like to say something first. Ryan comes toward me, but Michael blocks his way. Megan takes a seat close to Grace. Laura says, Eleanor. Her voice low. Give great thought to what you are doing. I open the still sealed envelope she handed me. I have thought about it. For weeks, I've thought about nothing else. I turn to face the room. About justice and protection. About who deserves the truth and who deserves mercies. Eli, Ryan's voice now clearly reflects actual terror. Whatever you think you know. I know everything. I open the briefcase but, not yet, I do not remove the papers. About William's death? About the trust funds. About your 2 marriages, Laura's schemes, Laura's lies to keep this house of cards standing. The space comes alive and whispers. Grace marches onward, her face ashen. Megan, Grace replies with shaky voice. I apologize. Mom. Megan's voice breaks. I knew nothing, not until Eleanor showed me. Clutching her children tighter, Ryan's sister asks. Showed you what? What are you doing? I look at the kids. Their innocent futures waiting on my next words, their perplexed faces. The envelope from Laura sears on my flesh. The truth, I say quietly, is that I came here tonight to destroy everything. To expose decades of fraud and manipulation. To get justice for everyone who's been hurt by the Mitchell family's lies. I get the first paper, William's actual suicide note. Laura moves rather silently. But standing here, looking at all of you, I glance back at Ryan. I understand something worse than being misled. Something worse than being deceived. Michael says, Eleanor, his voice tight. But I continue. The very thing you're fighting against is becoming. I touch it to Laura's envelope, the paper catches fast and I drop it into the briefcase. I find a match in my handbag. No. Michael jumps forward, but it's too late. Years of careful investigation burning to ash. With it burns my opportunity at justice, at revenge, at everything I thought I wanted. Since at times the best retribution is redemption rather than destruction. Laura sits across from me on the marble island, both of us wet from the sprinklers, watching cops cart away boxes of evidence. The actual evidence, not the decoy files I burned, painted Laura's perfect kitchen in alternating red and blue. Copies, I answer softly. Everything in that briefcase? Merely copies. The originals arrived at the FBI 1 hour ago. Her immaculate nails pound against her coffee cup. You chose this moment on purpose. The party here. Family gathering. Like father, like daughter-in-law. I slide William's real suicide note across the desk. He planned to disclose everything at your anniversary party too, didn't he? Prior to the hunting mishap. The drumming stops. Michael is watching with grim enjoyment through the glass, Ryan being guided to a police car. Laura's voice quivering. You don't understand what you've done, she continues. Those trust funds were being protected. Pulling out my phone, I show her the court orders. Every innocent beneficiary has been lawfully detached from the false accounts. The kids will hang on to their college money. The treatment keeps on medical level. I sense actual dread in her eyes for the first time. How? Much is leaning closer, I add. I had 3 weeks after you presented me the envelope. 3 weeks where you felt you would win. Did you truly believe I was doing nothing for that period? Much we hear activity at the door. Grace walks in, followed by federal officers, her eyes connect with Laura's. Grace states, simply, you killed William when he tried to protect my daughter from your schemes. Laura stands so fast that her chair falls over. That's absurd. Much as I interrupted, William was going to expose how you used Megan to access Grace's company records, then, how you manipulated Ryan into marrying us both to maintain your financial facade. Everything I accomplished served this family only. Laura tears. Megan answers, looking at the doorway, tear-stained but steady. No. Everything you did was for yourself. And today we all know the reason. Laura goes somewhat motionless as I slide one final document across the counter. An old picture. William wasn't merely aiming to reveal the hoax, was he? I inquire, seeing her expression crumple. He found something else. About the true father of Ryan. About why you so sorely needed the connections of the Carter family. Mom? Mom, what's happening? Ryan's voice calls from outside. Laura leaps for the picture, but Grace is faster. Her shriek resounds in the abruptly quiet kitchen. Looking at the picture, Grace adds, That's my father, staring at Laura. 37 years passed. I say, 9 months before Ryan was born. The truth hangs between us like smoke, decades of control, all to conceal one desperate affair, thereby preserving the Mitchell family's pristine image. You destroyed everything? Laura says quietly. No. I stand, compiling the last of the papers. You lost everything the moment you chose lies above love. William fought to save all of us and today at last he has? What precisely do you mean? Much one last time I grab my phone and show her the message chain. From an unidentified number, from a dead man, scheduled emails, planned to arrive years after his death. I meet her eyes. William knew he might not survive trying to expose the truth, so he left breadcrumbs for whoever was brave enough to follow them. I wasn't first victim, Laura. However, I am your last. Ryan is watching via the glass, finally seeing dawning on his face as Grace hands him the picture as the cops walk to escort her out. Was it worth it? Laura wonders as they lead her away. Burnishing everything to save a dead man's honor. Of Megan and Grace, now free from manipulation, of William, who passed away trying to protect us all, I consider the children above, their futures now safe. I add gently. Some things are worth burning for. Michael squeezes my shoulder as the sun rises over the Mitchell estate, casting everything in gold. Beside me, sirens fade. You okay? 30 years of lies collapsing in Laura's path, I see her go into a police cruiser. No, I say honestly. But I will be. Sometimes the truth simply tells you who you really are. Sometimes it doesn't set you free. Ryan's last box from his study remains unopened on my kitchen counter. Autumn leaves abound in my backyard, where 3 children previously swore to be friends forever through the window. Megan says, Grace wants to meet both of us. My phone buzzes. Laura and Ryan, both convicted, ended the trial yesterday. The headlines claim justice. The society pages labeled it scandal, neither fairly portrayed the facts. Expecting more evidence, more secrets, I raised the top from the box only to see an ancient video camera, the kind we used summer before college, when everything seemed possible. Megan stands there, appearing smaller somehow, more like the girl I used to know than the lady who helped sort everything. The doorbell rings. Holding out an identical camera, she adds, I found mine too, from Mom's attic. Both of us set them on the counter. These relics of who we used to be neither of us reaches to switch on. Did you come across Ryan's comment? She inquires. No. I pour us both coffee. This is a habit from earlier, when friendship was straightforward. Did you? Much her giggle sounds brittle. He said he loved both. Actually believed it, I guess. Sliding her cup across the counter. That's Ryan, I remark, living his own truth, even when it's a lie. Megan strokes one softly while the afternoon light catches the cameras creating twin shadows. Before Grace arrives, she continues, we should observe them. Before we choose our course of action. She nods. We both know Grace's meeting is about the future of her business, about trust and second chances, about whether some bridges can be rebuilt after they have burnt. It is not only about reconciliation. Ryan behind the camera, narrating our last summer together, behind which we are young, laughing, whole. Ryan connects the first camera to my laptop. The screen flickers to life. Before college. Before decisions. Before we knew how love and lies might wear the same face. Megan says unexpectedly, stop. Then looks at that moment. The picture freezes on our younger selves, sharing some forgotten joke, but it's Ryan's reflection in the window that catches my eye. The way he watches us both, scheming, even then. I understand he simply showed us who we already were, not destroyed us. What do you imply? Megan queries. You always yearned for adventure. I was always yearning control. He only turned those facts into weapons. The second camera sits dark, uninterested. Certain facts, I'm discovering, don't need to be seen to be understood. Megan's coffee sits unethered, going cold. Now we choose, I say. Between easy and true, not between right and wrong. Grace grabs my hand before Megan moves to answer the doorbell once more. She says, I'm sorry, not for loving him. For not remembering how to love you first, remembering Laura's last remarks during the trial, love makes liars of us all. I squeeze back. Maybe, I say Megan, we quit trying to change the past. Perhaps we should start something fresh. She nods, knowing what I'm not saying, about Grace's company, about second chances, about how occasionally revenge isn't about destroying what was, but constructing what may be. Laura plans her appeal somewhere in a prison cell. In another, Ryan writes letters we will never read. Life moves forward, messy and imperfect. Grace opens the door and notes how she carries herself now, straighter, stronger, free from decades of manipulation. The autumn wind scatters more leaves over the yard. I leave the cameras on the counter unaltered. Certain memories are better lived than remembered. Some facts are not revisited necessary. Megan and I glance at one other, remembering other documents, other plans, other decisions as Grace piles papers across my kitchen table. Plans for rebuilding, For forward movement, prepare? Grace questions. Of Laura, creating barriers to hide truths never worth preserving. Of William, planting truth bombs to detonate years after his death. Of Ryan, loving so fiercely he forgot how to love honestly. Indeed, I say, and I mean it. Sometimes the best kind of retribution is one in which one gains freedom rather than exacting revenge. After my wife's betrayal with my business partner, I guard my daughter's future while they try to reinsert themselves in our lives. My ex-wife Kathy, 38, and I, 38, had been together for 19 years and married for 16. We also had a 14-year-old daughter together. However, she left approximately 6 months ago to be with my previous work partner. To be more specific, my ex-work partner, as he sold his shares and left the company once I uncovered the affair. Leon, the guy I used to run the firm with, was a co-worker and a close friend. We agreed to quit our jobs and form a company together. We'd been working together for 5 years, and he'd had an affair with my wife for 3 of them. I learned about it approximately 6 months ago when I discovered some text messages on my wife's phone. When I challenged her about it, she didn't even try to dispute it and instead accepted everything. She told me she was sick and tired of hiding things and simply wanted to leave. I was saddened since I had no notion she was unhappy in our marriage, and I was willing to do anything to change that. So on the day I confronted her, when she announced she was leaving, I assured her we could still make it work. That was very stupid of me, but I was desperate. She simply became irritated with me and stated that the only reason she married me in the first place was because she was pregnant and didn't want to be alone. She tried to love me for 16 years, but it hadn't worked. She was not going to let me stop her now that she had found someone she truly loved. She explained that now that I knew about the affair, her secret had been revealed, and I had to swallow it and move on. I was heartbroken, especially for the sake of our daughter, but she didn't even hesitate to leave. She filed for divorce, and the petition was quite simple. She simply wanted to leave and did not demand a settlement or alimony from me. The asset distribution was fairly balanced. We concluded the divorce after a few months. After a while, I knew that what had transpired would prevent me from making it work with her. After we filed for divorce, I faced Leon, who just apologized, claiming he had wanted to tell me about the affair for a long time but didn't know how. Within a few weeks, he quit and informed me that he and Kathy would be moving away to avoid causing further trouble for me. Kathy had been offered a fantastic job in Boston, and his cousin lived there, so he could work alongside him instead. He sent all of this in an email, and we never spoke again. The last time I saw Kathy was 2 months ago, on the day our divorce was finalized. Since then, I have not heard from one of them. My kid and I were going through a difficult time, but we were getting by. At least I still had my business to manage, which kept me busy since I wanted to provide my daughter the future she deserved. However, Kathy returned about a week ago and I'm still not sure if my daughter and I did the right thing. So around a week ago, at 11 p.m., someone began furiously ringing our doorbell and knocking. My daughter had already gone to bed and I was finishing up some work in my office when it happened. We hurried to the door to check and through the glass, we saw Kathy. My daughter urged me not to open the door because she was furious with her mother. Despite having partial custody, Kathy has made little effort to communicate with our daughter and the fact that she cheated does not sit well with her either. Their relationship is tight right now, but I knew if Kathy was at my house at such a late hour, it had to be urgent so I opened the door and allowed her in. Instead of coming in, she started ranting at me from the doorstep, threatening to sue me. She insisted on taking this to court so she could receive everything she was owed since she couldn't believe I had chosen to punish her so harshly. For the first few seconds, I had no understanding what she was saying, and I had to urge her to slow down and elucidate since I was so perplexed. She was still upset and said there was no need for me to pretend I didn't know because she was certain I had withheld Leon's true character from her to punish her for cheating. Then she pulled up her shirt sleeve and showed me a place on her arm covered in a band-aid. I concluded Leon must have done something, which surprised me because we had worked together for several years and he had never lost his cool in front of me. Kathy told me that they had been arguing for the past few weeks, ever since they moved to Boston. Nothing had remained the same since their move. She assumed it was because Leon was still adjusting to his new life, but after a month there, he was acting as if everything was Kathy's fault. He apparently kept accusing her of wrecking his life because he had to abandon the business he had fought so hard to build. Now he had to work with his cousin, who was always undermining him, and he blamed Kathy for everything. She was the one who told me about the affair before he was ready, and now he had to relocate to Boston for her work, so he couldn't compete for the business either. They'd been arguing every night and the night before she arrived, he got incredibly angry and threw a vase at her. She attempted to dodge it but it still struck her arm, causing a cut. Until that point, he had only verbally abused her, But this time it had gone too far, and she had left the house that night to take the next flight here to tell me about it. She told me that Leon had not even tried to contact her or apologize after she departed. She said I was to blame for this because she believed I was aware of his violent behavior and had concealed it from her in order to punish her. She thought it was unfair of me to do so, especially because she believed she had done me a favor by not fighting for anything during the divorce. I couldn't even get her back and secure her safety. It was all pretty foolish because, as I already stated, I had worked with Leon for a long time and knew him well, but just on a professional level. In the office, he was much different. I had never dated him and had only met the ladies he had previously dated, so there was no way I could have known about this side of him. Her charges that I had hidden everything on purpose made no sense to me, and I was furious that she was acting as if I owed her something. I attempted to explain to her that I had no idea about all of this and that I was deeply sorry that it was happening to her, but it was ultimately her fault. She could threaten me with litigation all she wanted, but she understood it wasn't my fault. She continued to argue, stating that I knew everything and that she would fight for everything she didn't get during our divorce. My daughter had been waiting at the door the entire time, and I had almost completely forgotten about her since I was so preoccupied with the fight. When we started talking in circles, she interrupted Kathy and told her to go. I was astonished since I didn't expect her to interrupt, and I believe Kathy was caught off guard. Kathy then advised my daughter to stop up and keep out of it because she was too little to understand what was happening. She told my daughter to go to bed, but she refused. She held firm and stated that Kathy had no right to speak to me in this manner, especially given what she had put me through. My daughter reminded Kathy that I had been sad for the past few months, ever since I discovered her infidelity. Kathy, the cruel and heartless monster that she was, simply carried on with her life. She then pointed out that Kathy had neglected to visit her own daughter or stay in touch since she was preoccupied with Leon and her new life. My daughter informed Kathy that she had failed to be a good wife and mother, thus she had no business acting like a victim in a scenario she had made for herself. My daughter is only 14, but seeing her express those things made me realize how much she had matured since the divorce. Kathy was completely speechless and unable to respond to our daughter's statements. Finally, my daughter informed Kathy that now that she had gone and was living with Leon, she would have to cope with whatever she was going through on her own because we were no longer her family. Kathy had dug her own grave, and now she had to lie in it. Which was exactly what she deserved for screwing people over. After saying this, my daughter slammed the door in Kathy's face and returned to her room. I could hear Kathy crying outside the door, but I didn't bother checking on her because I didn't think it was necessary given our recent chat. I too went back to bed, trying not to think about the issue for the following few days while keeping myself busy at work. I was quite proud of my daughter for standing up for me and not allowing me to appear weak in front of Kathy. Things were going well after that visit, but 3 days ago Kathy showed up again, this time with a lawyer, demanding complete custody of our kid. Fortunately, our daughter was out with a couple of friends when she came over in the evening, so I haven't told her anything about it yet. I was furious when Kathy informed me that after our daughter spoke with her the last time we met, she decided she would no longer allow our daughter to live with me. She informed me that the actual reason she hadn't tried to contact our daughter after I found out about the affair was that she didn't want to become involved in a lengthy custody battle that would disturb my life much more than she already had. This, she claimed, was why she wanted to depart discreetly and hadn't attempted to contact our daughter. She thought it would have made matters worse because I was furious about the situation. So she was basically trying to tell me that she did all of this for my sake, not just to get out of having any responsibilities. I was clearly not buying it, and I informed her that the only reason she didn't fight for anything during the divorce, let alone custody of our kid, was that she wanted to leave swiftly and start a new life with Leon. This had nothing to do with me, as she tried to make it seem, therefore I didn't need to feel sorry for her. However, she stated that she no longer cared about that since she now desired full custody of our daughter and was determined to ensure that she received it. She insisted that she would not let me ruin my daughter's opinion of her by telling her ridiculous stories and training her to disrespect her mother. Kathy said that during our last meeting, our daughter was extremely disrespectful to her, and that I encouraged this conduct. She now knew what to do and had returned to inform me that she was taking this to court. I told her to be my guest and closed the door because I didn't want to waste any more time talking to her. However, I began to question whether she had a point. I wanted to believe I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't sure, to be honest, so I felt bad about not reprimanding my daughter when she was rude to her mother. Update 1. I've determined that I have nothing to be sorry for. My daughter did the correct thing in sticking up for me, and the comments made me understand how silly I was. She cheated on me, so I don't think I should feel sorrow or regret for what happened to her. Many people in the comments urged me to speak with my daughter first since it would be unfair for her to be caught off guard if Kathy applies for full custody after our last meeting. So I told my kid about it yesterday. I didn't want to withhold anything from her. She has already demonstrated to me that she is grown enough to handle these situations, and I feel horrible that she had to mature overnight. At least now, I can help her prepare for the future. So yet, we haven't heard from Kathy, but we expect to shortly. Our daughter is 14, which means she can be considered in court if the situation escalates. If we can reach an agreement during mediation, that would be ideal, but just in case, I have confirmed that she actually wants to stay with me. She has made it clearly plain that she doesn't want anything to do with Kathy, not just now anyhow. She told me that in the future, she would contemplate reuniting with Kathy and restoring their connection, but for the time being, everything is too fresh. She clearly blames her mother for splitting up the family, and I can't say anything because it's technically correct. I don't want to be the type of father who turns his child against his ex-partner for petty reasons, but in this case, I don't think there is much I can do. Kathy has done a fantastic job alienating our daughter, who now prefers to keep her distance from her own mother. They were fairly close before the affair came to light, so this is a significant departure from what they were both used to. Kathy is clearly irritated that my daughter is on my side, as she has always attempted to be closer to her. Speaking of which, several of you wanted to know who informed our daughter about the affair. It was Kathy, not me. She confessed in an email to our daughter a few days after she moved out, without first asking if I wanted to be involved. My kid was really unhappy when she found out, but she still wanted to speak with her mother just once. However, Kathy refused. When I tried to contact Kathy to let her know our daughter wanted to talk, she refused because she was too preoccupied with the divorce process. She also didn't think it was proper to discuss it, so she expressed what she wanted to say in that email and had nothing else to add. I attempted to persuade her to speak with our daughter only once because she appeared to have a lot of questions. However, Kathy remained adamant about her decision. After that, she stopped speaking to us entirely, and my daughter's perception of her mother shifted dramatically. Kathy holding me responsible for that does not seem fair to me. Anyway, I've spoken with my lawyer and we're going to deal with this. Update 2. Kathy ultimately served me with the notice for full custody a few days ago, and my lawyer and I responded by fighting it right away. We are scheduled to meet with the court-appointed mediator tomorrow, but Leon called me today. I was shocked to see his name on my phone because we didn't have much to chat about, but I answered the call. As soon as I did, he asked me to return Kathy to him. He claimed he'd been trying to reach her for a few days and knew she'd been with me or spoken to me, so he wanted me to tell her where she was. I told him I had no idea where she was residing, but I had spoken with her in the last several days and she was here to battle for custody of our kid. To be clear, I did not do this to help Leon, but I hoped that if Leon stopped by and chatted with Kathy, he might alter her mind and convince her to return. If I was lucky, he might even get her to sign over her rights to our daughter. With that in mind, I told him everything and added that she was upset since he had not contacted her after she left that night. I urged that if he wanted her back, he should act immediately. The poor guy had no suspicions and had no idea he was being exploited, which worked out perfectly for me. I just hope Kathy still wants to make it work with him. When he comes back, she might accompany him. I also discussed this idea with my lawyer, who confirmed that what I did was correct. Even though the odds are already in our favor, it doesn't hurt to save time and energy by resolving this before going to court. Update 3. Kathy and I met for our first mediation session 2 days ago and it obviously did not go well. She disagreed with all of our views and said it was all a waste of time before ending the session after half an hour. After she left, I returned home after picking up my kid from school. When we returned, Leon was waiting for us at our door. The poor guy appeared to be in a dreadful state, and I can only imagine how he must be feeling after spending a few months with Kathy. I told him he needed to leave because my daughter and I had just returned home and wanted to rest. We didn't have time to cope with his turmoil, and I had already helped him in whatever way I could. I couldn't go out of my way to aid the man who had been having an affair with my wife, but he actually broke down, claiming that after their last battle, she hadn't even responded to any of his texts, and he had no idea where to seek for her. I informed him, as I had before, that I still didn't know where she lived and that I couldn't help him. He just slumped down on the front steps, crying and holding his head in his hands. At that moment I began to become upset since this guy and Kathy had literally ruined my life and now he felt comfortable enough to seek my assistance in finding her so they could settle things. I ordered my daughter to go inside so I could deal with this, and after she was inside, I told Leon he needed to leave because I was done with both of them for good. For good measure, I gave him Kathy's parents' contact information and told him to call them if he couldn't reach her. but he had to leave us alone immediately. I told him that he had damaged both mine and Kathy's lives. He tried to apologize, saying he didn't mean to harm me, but he'd fallen in love with her and couldn't stop himself. I didn't want to hear it, so I said nothing, and he departed. I'm constantly exhausted and bewildered, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life right now. I sincerely hope and pray that Leon and Kathy can make things right for my sake, if not theirs, because if they do, they will most likely leave me and my kid alone, and I will finally be able to move on with my life. At this point, I'm not sure what's going on or how I should feel about anything. I'm numb for the most part and can't wait for this to be over. Update 4. Kathy stopped our mediation sessions a few days ago, saying she wanted to take our case to court. That would not end well for her, as we all knew, but it appears she was no longer in denial. Anyway, she came to see me a few hours ago with Leon. I suppose they were able to patch things up. I didn't invite them in since my daughter was home and unwell, and I didn't want to make things worse for her. I ordered them to wait for me at a nearby cafe, called my mother to take care of my daughter, and then went to the cafe to hash things out. When I arrived, Kathy and Leon apologized for everything they had put me through. Again, I had to inform them that this no longer mattered to me. I really wanted them to move on and explain why they had called me there. I didn't want to waste my time with insincere apologies, so they stopped skirting the issue and informed me that they recognized they had made a mistake by screwing me over and that they were really unhappy in Boston. Kathy missed our daughter, while Leon missed being his own boss. Kathy now wanted me to agree to send our daughter to see her every weekend, or every other weekend, because she didn't want to give up her current life. Leon's demands were even more outrageous. He wanted to return as a partner in the company and open a branch in Boston. The finest part of all was that they expected me to make a decision within a few days. Kathy's bosses had advised her that if she wanted to keep her job, she needed to return because she could no longer work from home. Even if I wanted to tell them I would think about it, I didn't have the option. That's why I ended up telling them I couldn't agree to any of it. Leon had already quit and sold his shares, which I had on paper, so I was not going to hire him again because I didn't trust him at all. Kathy's proposal was unreasonable because our daughter did not deserve to go back and forth every other weekend simply to see her mother. She should have considered these things before moving to Boston. This is absolutely not my fault. They began to dispute with me, saying they were willing to compromise since they did not want to fight this in court. I told them that the thought of fighting for what they wanted in court and actually winning was ridiculous. They only wanted to bargain with me in person because they believed they could manipulate me. Unfortunately, I was not weak or stupid enough to believe any of this. The only reason I'd come to meet them was to put an end to this. That actually silenced them, since they realized they'd never win if this went to court. I told them that the most I could do for them, or Kathy in particular, was to talk to our daughter and get her to meet Kathy whenever she came to visit. Aside from that, I wasn't doing anything, so they could take or leave it. I wasn't going to waste any more of my time arguing with them. Kathy seemed desperate, so she consented quickly, and I left. I will talk to my daughter when she feels better, but I will not compel her to do anything she does not want to do. If she decides she doesn't want to see her mother again, that is her choice. I am not going to convince her. Update 5. Hello, a few months have gone by. In my last update, I stated that I would not push my daughter to meet her mother if she did not wish to. I next spoke with my daughter, telling her what I had said to Kathy. She stated that she wanted some time to consider things over, so I expressed this to Kathy a few months back. Since then, we have not communicated. I'm not sure if she and Leon have settled their differences. I don't care. According to what I know, they are still together and living in Boston. Good for them, I suppose. At least they've left me alone, so I can now start to move on. That's exactly what I'm doing. The best revenge is to live well, therefore I'm focusing on working and growing my kid to be a wonderful human being, unlike her mother. Basically, I hope I am successful in doing so. Sil endured 2 assaults, leaving a letter that led my brother to disown his daughter. I raised her, but now he demands her house. To begin with, my sister-in-law Zara was a very kind and generous person. She always treated me with love and made me feel like I was a sister from the first time I met her. We had grown really close over the years because we were both working women, and we would spend our weekends shopping or going to lunch together. Zara was always incredibly fit and took excellent care of her health. This is why the sad news of her breast cancer diagnosis shocked us all so deeply. We united behind her and supported her fight against cancer. I made it a point to visit her frequently during her chemotherapy rounds to spend time with her and watch over my infant niece whenever possible. During one of my visits to her home, while we sat together in her living room, she told me some news that broke my heart. Her voice trembled as she stated that her physicians had delivered a devastating diagnosis. Her cancer was severe and resistant to therapy. They'd given her a prognosis that left little room for optimism. The weight of her comments weighed heavily in the air, and I fought to find the perfect words to console her during that vulnerable moment. I asked her what I could do to make everything easy for her. Her eyes, which were typically filled with love and joy, suddenly showed a mixture of fear and resignation. She thanked me for everything I had done for her and expressed her desire not to burden me with a secret she had kept concealed from everyone. I strongly stated that she had nothing to apologize for and that I would do anything for her, no questions asked. She then entrusted me with a secret she had never told anyone, including her own parents. She told me that years ago, during her undergraduate days, she went through a horrible experience that has haunted her ever since. She was the victim of a sexual attack at a party, where she had been drinking too much. The attacker wore a mask, making it impossible for her to recognize him. The horror of that night left severe scars that she had been carrying silently for years. As she described the events of that fatal evening, I listened in terror. She was then in a relationship with my brother. Naturally, she looked to him for help and consolation, expecting that he would be the one person in the world who understood her. Instead of finding relief in his embrace, she was confronted with astonishment and accusations. My brother couldn't understand how another man could violate her in this way. In disbelief, he began to question her actions, indicating that perhaps her clothes or demeanor toward the guy at the party had prompted the assault. He refused to think that a man could accomplish such a thing unless the lady gave him a signal. Zara was heartbroken that he was questioning her in this manner. The weight of shame and guilt, wrongfully imposed on her by someone she loved, exacerbated her pain. Despite this, she summoned the bravery to denounce the assault to the police and even underwent a medical examination, which confirmed her claim about the assault. She wanted the culprit punished. Unfortunately for Zara, she lived in a college neighborhood where parties were prevalent and thousands of students congregated under the cover of night. Despite their best efforts, the authorities were unable to identify the masked assailant. It didn't help that none of the guests at the party came forward to testify for her. As a result, the inquiry stalled, and Zara never received justice. At the time, her parents were still living and the only ones who believed in her. This is how she overcame her great humiliation for what had occurred to her. According to Zara, after months of discussing the incident with my brother, he finally came around and apologized for his initial reaction. He realized that he should have known better and pledged to be more supportive of her going forward. Despite the strain on their relationship, Zara did not want to break it with him, so she chose to forgive him. Despite my brother's best efforts to be there for her in the years that followed, the tragedy never left her mind. I was saddened to hear this, especially since my brother had never mentioned any of it to me. Syl pointed out that my brother disliked discussing it and had even told her to keep the occurrence a secret, as if it were something disgusting for others to discover. I gently gripped Syl's hand and assured her that I didn't blame her for anything that had happened to her because it was never her fault. Syl smiled back bitterly and told me she had more to say. She talked slowly, as if each word was both a confession and a request for understanding. She then disclosed that she had been sexually attacked again after the initial event, this time by her former employer from her prior position. I remembered how 2 or 3 years ago, she unexpectedly left her work, despite the fact that she had always enjoyed it. Syl had never told me why until now. Her hands trembled as she described how terrified and helpless she felt during the second assault. She informed me she was numb from shock during the event and could only move after the assault finished. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she departed the scene in a daze, her entire body trembling with the weight of what had just occurred. She recounted feeling detached from everything, as if she were witnessing the trauma from outside her own body. Later, as she sat in her car crying, her first thoughts drifted to my brother. She knew based on his earlier reaction that he would likely blame her again. She described how she felt the same shame when she realized she had been abused by another man without her consent. She felt unclean and repulsed by herself. This time, the trauma had a greater impact on her mental health since, unlike previously, she had no one to talk to. Her parents had died, and she was afraid to open out to my brother. As a result, she fell into melancholy and experienced a few panic attacks. Syl told me she debated whether to report the assault to the police and have her boss arrested, or to safeguard her marriage. Then, 3 weeks later, she learned she was pregnant. At that point, she was positive that the child was not my brother's. The weight of this realization devastated her even more, and she was unsure how to convey the news to my brother. She assumed he would ask for a divorce. As her mental health deteriorated, Syl decided to end her life. She told me how powerless she felt at the time, lacking the strength to end the pregnancy and not wanting others to know about the assaults. I listened to her story, holding back tears, unable to understand what she had been through silently, without any of us knowing. Sil went on to tell me how, the evening she decided to end her life with sleeping pills, everything changed. My brother unexpectedly discovered the positive pregnancy test in the restroom. Instead of waiting for an explanation, he began bouncing up and down, overjoyed that she was pregnant and that they could finally start a family together. Caught up in his joy and engulfed in his embrace, she found herself unable to bring him down with the truth. Later, she told me how humiliated she was for not having the strength to tell him the truth that day or over the course of the previous 2 years, that the child was not his. Sil informed me that every time she saw the delicate moments between her daughter and my brother, her heart broke again. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she apologized to me for lying to my brother and everyone else. She even referred to herself as a coward and a loser who did not deserve a family as great as ours. She believed that cancer was God's punishment for her falsehoods. She informed me she intended to disclose everything to my brother before she died. However, she asked me to make her a pledge. It turns out she wanted me to look after her daughter while she was gone. She pleaded with me with her hands since she had no family members left, both her parents and grandparents had passed away. If my brother refused to accept the child after learning the truth, I was her only hope of caring for her daughter. I was quite shaken after hearing everything and needed some time to comprehend it all. As a woman myself, I felt profound sympathy for everything she had been through. I knew she was telling me the whole truth because she was dying and needed to get it off her chest. Of course, I realized that she had lied to my brother for so long about being the baby's father, but she was also visibly sorry. At this moment, all I could do was reassure her that if necessary I would raise my niece on my own. She exhaled a sigh of relief as I fulfilled my promise to her. I continued to see Sil over the weeks as her illness advanced, holding out hope for her survival even as the reality of her condition became more apparent. She remained as courageous as possible throughout. Finally, she went away peacefully in her sleep. Her absence has created a void, yet her spirit continues to motivate me to live with compassion and gratitude. She showed me that even in the worst times, there can be grace and beauty if we have the strength to perceive it. She was more than just a sister-in-law to me. She was a friend and sincere confidant. After she died, my brother shared with me the contents of a letter written by my sister-in-law, which revealed the awful reality she had previously confided in me. He was heartbroken to realize that the child he had embraced with such delight was not biologically his. His anguish and rage were obvious as he dealt with this new reality, which was exacerbated by the recent death of his wife. In his grief, he couldn't bring himself to hold the infant anymore. Instead, he told our parents and me that he was going to give her up. I firmly told him that Sil had asked me to look after my niece, and that I wanted to take care of her even if he no longer wanted her. This is how I welcomed my niece into my home without hesitation. I was really heartbroken for her because she had just lost her mother, and with no other family left, her parents and grandparents had passed away. I knew she needed a stable and supportive atmosphere at the moment. Later, when we gathered for the reading of my sister-in-law's will, everyone was already emotional because they knew my niece did not belong to my brother. Many of my family members were divided over this news. However, Sil was no longer with us to face their fury. According to her will, she made specific and careful plans for her daughter's future, leaving every asset and resource she had amassed over the years for her daughter's benefit. Sil had a large fortune from both her parents and grandparents, so she had a lot of money to leave behind. To my brother's sorrow, nothing was allocated to him, exacerbating his pain and sense of betrayal. He yelled loudly that it was wrong of her not to leave anything in her will for him. Sil had specifically stated that she had committed the management of these monies to me provided I was willing to take on the responsibility of caring for her kid. This news surprised both me and everyone else present. I suppose this is why Sil wanted me to make that pledge to her weeks before she died, so she could update her will accordingly. She was correct to believe her intuition and not allow my brother access to her assets, since if that had been the case, he would never have let my niece have anything and would have abandoned her without money. My brother was unwilling to continue caring for the child, therefore I was eventually granted full custody of my niece. I'd been able to care for her all these years because of the financial support I received. My brother attempted to battle me over the money Sil had left behind, believing he was entitled to at least half of it. However, the judge did not listen to him. In rage, my brother told me that he didn't want anything to do with Sil's daughter and that he never wanted to see my face again, saying that I had betrayed him by taking in the girl. I firmly told him that I was sorry for all of his sorrow, but I was not going to break my promise to Sil. My sister-in-law's decision to keep the facts from my brother was wrong, and I acknowledged that. However, now that she is no longer with us, I am convinced that the child is not to blame for her parents' conduct. This is why I've always focused only on establishing a caring and secure home for my niece, sheltering her from the intricacies of the past. Over the years, I've used the funds Sil left behind to ensure that my niece has everything she needs. I've also purchased a home for her, which my niece will entirely inherit once she reaches adulthood. I've made every effort to send her to great schools and care for her as if she were my own daughter. I am not married and have dedicated my entire life to raising my niece. Despite my best attempts, my niece, understandably, has concerns about her parents, especially her father. She misses my brother, but she understands that relationships cannot be forced in these circumstances. My decision to prioritize my niece's well-being has affected my ties with my other family members. They have all chosen to cut ties with me and no longer invite me to family gatherings, claiming that my actions are foolish and that I have prioritized my niece over my own. Even my parents believe I should have given up my niece and have often expressed their disappointment that I am raising someone else's child. As you might expect, the past several years have been a challenging journey in which I've had to negotiate the chasm between what I believe is right and the ramifications of those decisions on my family connections. This year, as my niece approaches her 18th birthday, I feel a sense of accomplishment as I prepare to transfer all of her assets, including the property I've acquired for her per Sil's desires. It's a significant achievement for which I've worked hard. I feel like I've done everything I could to protect her up until now, and she's ready to make her own decisions. My brother contacted me unexpectedly last week, saying he needed to discuss something very serious. My heart skipped a beat. I hoped he'd realized his mistake and wanted to reconnect with me and my niece after all these years. I agreed to meet with him, but I didn't want my niece to find out and get her hopes up until I knew why he was visiting. So I planned for us to meet when she was at school. When my brother came, there was a sense of expectation and warmth as we made small chat. He told me he has since remarried, and I was pleasantly surprised to learn that he now has 2 children of his own. He showed me images of them, and his boys looked exactly like him. I was disappointed that he hadn't invited me to his wedding, but I understood that he did what he had to do after Sil had deceived him. During our talk, I couldn't help but feel proud as I highlighted my niece's accomplishments and improvement over the years. I informed my brother that she occasionally inquired about him and was fairly mature for her age, thinking he would say he wanted to see her. Despite my excitement to communicate these wonderful tidings, he appeared indifferent to my niece. He interrupted me, his tone immediately changing to one of seriousness. He explained that he had come to meet me not to discuss my niece, but to request ownership of her house. I stared at him wide-eyed as he told how his family had suddenly lost their home and that our parents had already loaned him a large sum of money over the years, so he could no longer ask for assistance. Since he knew I had purchased the house with Sil's money, he believed it was only fair for me and my niece to let him keep the house to accommodate his large family while we relocated to a smaller space. I questioned him why he thought he could even pose such a question. My brother went on to defend it by claiming that he had previously done a lot for Sil, but she had turned out to be nothing more than a leech. I knew this wasn't true because Sil had always worked and paid her portion of the bills, including throughout her chemotherapy treatments. She covered her own medical expenses and had health insurance. I brought this out to my brother, telling him that it was ridiculous for him to expect a house when he hadn't even bothered raising my niece after Sil died. This simply made him angrier. He told me that, as his sister, I should stop holding a candle for a deceased woman and instead assist him and his family in securing the house before my niece turned 18. He persuaded me to view things his way, saying that the house was his legitimate possession. The weight of his words hung in the air as I considered his request. I couldn't help but consider the ramifications of such a decision. The property was more than simply a physical asset. It symbolized security and stability, which had been meticulously planned for my niece's future. To give it up, no matter how badly my brother needed it, would mean breaking commitments and risking the stability I had fought so hard to establish. My niece's well-being and future were paramount, and any decision involving her assets had to be made with her best interests in mind, no matter how difficult or emotional the situation. In that moment, I grasped the gravity of the situation and the need to stick to my beliefs. I informed him unequivocally that I could not support his request and that he should take responsibility for his own family rather than relying on his deceased wife's possessions. I continued to tell him how ashamed I was that he even considered this option, and how he had given up all rights when he handed over custody of his daughter to me following Sil's death. My brother's face flushed red with rage at my statement, but I continued before he could interject again. I voiced my disappointment that he had not been present for my niece during all of these years. I didn't hesitate to remind him that, while I realized Sil had betrayed him, he should also see that she had been the victim of countless traumas. It was unjust of him to put the blame onto her now, especially because he had not supported her after her first sexual assault. When I revealed the assault, his eyes widened in amazement, and he demanded to know how I knew about it. As no one else knew the truth. This is when I told him that Sil had confided in me and entrusted me with the task of caring for my niece before she died. When my brother heard this, he became accusatory, alleging I had surprised him and labeling me a liar, just like Sil. I shook my head, reminding him that Sil was terminally ill and had already endured enough. After all the years of him not taking responsibility for my niece while I had done everything I could to assist her, he had no right to bring up the past and complain now simply because he wanted Sil's money. I was weary of him constantly behaving like a victim. It was disheartening to see him shift blame and claim entitlement when he had not been financially supportive of my niece for years. His boldness in coming 16 years later and requesting ownership of her house felt like a slap in the face, ignoring all of my sacrifices and attempts to assure my niece's well-being and future security. My brother was unhappy because I refused to give in to his demands. Since our meeting, he and my parents have called me often, accusing me of being difficult for no reason and insisting that I have family devotion to them rather than my niece. It's demoralizing and terrifying to discover that when it comes to money, even your own blood relatives can devolve into something unknown. I continue to stand up for my niece and refuse to give in to my brother's unreasonable demands. Update 1. First and foremost, I am astounded by how kind everyone has been in my DMs and comments. Thank you for making me grin. Second, I can't tell you how many women have contacted me, giving their own stories and saying how closely they connect to what Sil went through. I wish I could give every one of you a great, tight embrace and relieve your anguish. Sexual assault is one of the most horrible things that can happen to a woman, and I wish someone could have helped Sil at the time. She wasn't a bad person, and she didn't deserve what she went through. It's unfortunate that I have to defend her, but just because you haven't suffered sexual assault doesn't imply others don't. Sil had demonstrated amazing courage following the first assault, but the second occurrence left her shaken. Rightly so. She was immobilized in fear, as many sexual assault victims are. I wish she had felt comfortable enough to open up to me sooner, because I would have been there for her in every way. Knowing what she went through crushes my heart, and I wish I could have been there for her during those difficult days. To those who label Sil a cheater and question her narrative, I really pray you never go through such anguish only to have your truth challenged. If Sil had really had an affair, she may have instructed me to contact the man for custody after she died. Furthermore, if there had been an affair, the man would not have remained silent all these years, he would have most certainly come up, especially given how much money Sil left behind for her kid. If she had an affair, I'm sure she would have wanted her daughter to know her biological father. Sil did everything possible to safeguard her daughter. Update 2. I sat down with my niece and told her that my brother had lately been to speak with me, and his main goal was to gain control of the house. I advised her to be cautious if he ever approached her. As I talked, I could see the rage and pain in her eyes. She had hoped for years that her father would reach out to her because he actually cared. However, when she discovered that his contact was motivated by his own wants, she felt deceived. I can't believe him, she informed me, her voice shaking from emotion. After all this time, he only reached out when he needed something. She informed me that she did not want anything to do with him and expressed her gratitude that her mother had not left him anything. She then hugged me and expressed her gratitude for everything I'd done for her over the years. Her statements were simultaneously painful and empowering to hear. It brought tears to my eyes as I understood that despite the sorrow of her father's acts, she was strong and determined to carry on without him. Update 3. After speaking with my niece, I decided to send a lengthy email to my parents and brother to document everything and state my position clearly. In the email, I described our previous interactions and highlighted that they had no right to ask me to hand over my niece's home to my brother. I stressed that this request constituted financial fraud and stated unequivocally that I would take legal action if my brother attempted to see me or my niece again to request the house for his family. I informed my brother that by choosing not to care for his kid he surrendered all rights. I also discussed the numerous difficulties and frustrations I had encountered while raising my niece on my own, with no prior experience. I highlighted the emotional, financial, and logistical hurdles I had faced in providing her with a secure and caring home. I also informed him that he had never paid child support or checked in on his daughter in all these years. I pointed out that he and my parents should feel nothing but guilt for attempting to take something that did not belong to them. I insisted that they had no right to suddenly intervene and make demands after all this time, especially because they had contributed nothing to her upbringing or well-being. The email was detailed and sincere, reflecting the sacrifices I had made for my niece. I reaffirmed my resolve to protect her and honor Sil's wishes no matter what. My message was clear and unequivocal. They had forfeited their right to be a part of her life due to their negligence and lack of support, and they had no place in her future. I never received a response after submitting the email. However, my brother and parents have not contacted me again, which is satisfactory for me. The silence speaks volumes, and I'm happy to have some peace knowing they won't meddle with my niece's life anymore. My niece is now preparing for her prom and impending birthday celebration. Watching her manage these thrilling occasions makes me very proud. I am so proud of the woman she has become, and I can't wait to support her at every big milestone in her future. It makes me emotional just thinking about how much she has grown and how much she resembles Sil, especially in her lips and brows. Every day I see Sil's strength and tenacity in my niece, and I only hope that she will be as strong as her mother, no matter what she does. I overheard my fiancé say my money was the best part of me, so I humiliated her. She trashed my house, and now I'm taking her to court. I am now 29 years old, with an MBA and a very lucrative position in my father's firm. I know this makes me sound like a snobbish affluent kid, but please hear me out. Growing up we weren't doing well. We battled a lot, and our family was deeply in debt. I was young at the time, so I don't remember every detail, but my father made a highly hazardous loan with our house as security, which was the only valuable asset we had because it was his grandfather's. That money was what let him launch his business, and despite a tough start, things improved. It wasn't enjoyable at the time, but looking back, I'm thankful that I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I believe it made me more down to earth and helped me understand the importance of hard effort. This experience prompted me to get an MBA because I wanted to contribute to what my father had established. While it may appear that I'm merely the son working in his father's company, benefiting from nepotism, I confess there is some truth to this, but I also know I'm there on merit. I worked hard and put forth my own effort to help the company flourish. As a result, my family and I are both financially secure. Because of this, I've become quite cautious in relationships, knowing that we didn't always have this money and don't want to wind up with someone who is only interested in my bank account. In my mid-20s, when things were going well, I dated a lot. Many of my dates did not even make it past the first date. I probably only went on a third date a few times. Then, 2.5 years ago, I met someone named Brianna, not her real name for obvious reasons. She was beautiful. When I saw her smile, I wanted to go say hello. I discovered she was a nurse, which made her even more appealing to me because it is a career I much admire. I asked for her phone number, and that was the beginning of our relationship. I've always been careful in relationships, and I approach them with the goal of determining whether the individual could be my future wife before taking things too seriously. I aim to make sure that money is only a minor part of the reason someone is with me. I don't want somebody to be with me based only on the fact that I'm attractive. Brianna did not exhibit any gold-digging activity that I noticed. She was intelligent, witty, and brought everything I desired to the table. So 2 years after we met I proposed to her, and she accepted. Brianna is currently my fiancée, and she promised to spend the rest of her life with me, which made me very pleased. I'm about to get to the point of this narrative, but first, there was one important event that soured me. It is worth highlighting. Obviously, as we got closer, Brianna learned more about my family's financial situation. She knew my family was not impoverished and that we were doing well. A few months after the proposal, I mentioned the possibility of a prenuptial agreement. To be honest, I felt it was a perfectly acceptable conversation, but she disagreed. She flipped out. According to her, suggesting a prenuptial agreement was bad for 2 reasons. First, it appeared to her that I did not think our relationship would last. That is not true, but even if I'm completely dedicated to the marriage, if she wakes up one day and says she is done, I have no influence over that. Second, she interpreted it as a sign that I did not trust her not to rob me if things didn't go as planned. That's the gist of it, but we ended up arguing for an hour and going to bed upset with each other. After pondering all night, I informed her that the prenuptial agreement would be unnecessary. Yes, I know it was silly, but I loved her so much that I decided to let it go because I didn't want the prenup to be the reason we broke up. Following all of that, things improved between us very quickly. Now, I truly need third parties to tell me what to do. One of my fiancé's colleagues was holding a barbecue, and she encouraged me to join them. I decided it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to meet some of the people she worked with, as she referenced them constantly. When I arrived, everyone was friendly, and I had a terrific time. To be honest, I met several of the nurses that worked with her on most shifts. At one point, I was outdoors talking with a fellow about sports and investments. I knew she was inside conversing with her pals, and that was okay. When I realized I wanted to use the restroom, I returned to the house via the back door. I'm not sure how to describe it, but the back entrance led to a hallway that terminated in the living room. Standing at the rear door, you couldn't see anyone seated in the living room until you turned the corner. As I was headed to the bathroom, I heard my fiancé's voice among others, and it was evident from the first sentence that I was the subject of talk. It began with them discussing how well I dress, which naturally led to how pricey my clothing is. Then my money showed up. The girls were chirping and smiling as they discussed how fortunate she was to have found someone with money. Then I heard my fiancé say something that hit me hard. He has a lot of money, and honestly, his money is the best part of him by far. This was followed by more giggling and laughter. She even said, he asked for a prenup. I said no, of course, I need to be able to pay out if things go south. More laughter followed. At that point, I walked back out of the house. I honestly did not need to use the restroom anymore. When we returned home, she recognized something was wrong with me, but I didn't tell her until she went to bed. This happened a few days ago and I'm not sure what to do. She's a wonderful person, and I adore her, but I'm having a struggle with myself about whether I should dismiss it as dumb girl talk that went too far, or if it's worth canceling everything we've planned for the wedding and kicking her out of the house. I honestly don't know what to do. My mind is telling me to stop things since this is exactly what I didn't want. Someone who values my money too highly. She was the perfect lady for me just a few days ago and I hate how quickly things changed. My heart is asking me to talk about it, but I can't figure out why. I would appreciate any and all advice. Edit 1. Many people believe that I should not have compromised on the prenuptial agreement and should have stopped things right there. Many of you expressed it in overly harsh ways, but I have strong skin. If I had the chance again, I might not have done things differently, but I agree that I would give someone else the same counsel that many of you are giving me here. I should have remained firm on the prenup since, even if I decide to stay with her, the comment I overheard emphasizes how essential a prenup is to her. Edit 2. I'm inclined to agree with people who think I should terminate things now rather than take a chance with someone who has demonstrated that my money is his major concern. The only issue is, I believe the best case scenario is that we revisit the prenuptial agreement. I know it would protect me, but it wouldn't necessarily change her attitude toward my money. But isn't it natural for someone to appreciate that their partner has a nice income? Edit 3. Okay, I've had a lot of sense instilled in me. I will still bring up the prenup to see what she says, but I am ready to terminate things. I adore Brianna, therefore it's difficult for me to let her go. I want to know if I gave things a chance. Update. Here's the update that I know many of you have been waiting for. The story about my fiancé, who I overheard telling her friends that my money was the best part of me, has concluded, and I am overjoyed with how things turned out. The first thing I needed to do was speak with Brianna again about the prenup. I believe it was about a week after we returned from the cookout that I told her to sit down for a discussion. When I informed her we wanted to talk about the prenup again, she blew up, like she had the last time. It got even worse the second time around. She complained about how it showed I didn't trust her and wasn't rooting for the relationship to succeed. I attempted to explain that it was about defending my father's hard work. I own a substantial portion of his company, rather than protecting myself. But she wouldn't have it. She kept yelling, and I tried everything I could to persuade her of my point, but nothing worked. I asked her if she would marry me if the prenup was a requirement. She didn't ponder long before announcing that she would seriously examine our future together. At that time, I realized I couldn't win her over. I informed her that after the first time, I was willing to drop the prenup, so I asked her to guess why I was bringing it up again. She was obviously bewildered, so I promised her I'd help her figure it out. I asked her to recall a conversation she had with her nursing colleagues at a friend's cookout. It was all she said. We talked about so many things, I don't know what you're talking about. I responded, you don't recall smiling and joking with your pals, claiming that my money was the nicest part of me. You don't remember telling them you couldn't sign a prenup because you wouldn't get the cash if we divorced. At that point, it was evident she remembered what I was saying because she began to quiver and appear incredibly anxious. I waited for her to affirm or reject what I had stated, but she did not respond. I pushed her to talk, but she only stared at me, her hands trembling. I'm not sure why, but that made me giggle, and it appeared to set her off. She started crying and wailing without responding to anything I had said. At that moment, I was frustrated that she had nothing to say, and I expected a response from her. So I told her that the wedding was no longer going to happen. She slumped on the ground, muttering please, through tears and sniffles. I stood up, went into our room, locked the door, and went to bed. The following morning, she was waiting for me. She didn't appear like she had slept all night. When she saw me, she approached me and was extremely friendly, but I shook her off. She attempted to explain the context of what I had overheard, stating she was simply trying to fit into the Gossip Girl ambiance and did not mean what she had said. She accused her friends and colleagues of being terrible influences. She argued that my money was not the reason she fell in love with me. I thought it might be true at first, But I had the impression that she had grown to adore the money. She claimed she would sign the prenup and that it would not be an issue for her. Even with that, I didn't know what to say to her. I took her hand, looked her in the eye compassionately, and carefully removed the engagement ring from her finger. I had paid a lot of money for that ring and I didn't want it to end up in her hands. That hit a nerve. She began crying, but quickly switched to cussing me out. She branded me ugly, unattractive, with a little penis, and even queer. She stated she slept with a man she met at a bar simply because she felt like it. I'm not sure if I believe that part, but it really doesn't matter anymore. She stated my money was the one thing she liked about me and she wished she could have milked me for more. She threw every insult she could think of at me, and I eventually started giggling. That's when she started throwing stuff at me. As much as I wanted to remain calm and unconcerned, she began flinging some potentially deadly stuff, so I ran to the bedroom and shut myself in. It took almost 2 hours until things calmed down. When I came out, she had left, but she had wrecked the entire apartment. I was enraged, and in that moment, I knew I had made the proper decision. I photographed everything and obtained footage from one of the indoor cameras I'd put. After that, I left the house and went to sleep in a hotel because it was complete pandemonium, and I had no idea where to begin with the cleanup. This is where I chose to have fun. I visited her Facebook and Instagram profiles, where she had announced our engagement. I composed a message. I'm sorry to inform you that the wedding has been cancelled, and I am no longer engaged to Brianna. She acknowledged being with me solely for the money, and when I challenged her about it, she lost her mind and wrecked my house. If you have any queries, please ask her. I replied to each and every comment. She despises looking awful in front of others, so this aspect was very enjoyable. I then created my own post, displaying the devastation she had wreaked, as well as brief bits from video of her trashing the house during her tantrum. I tagged her relatives and friends as well as the hospital where she works. The last one was just for fun, and it felt wonderful knowing that some rumors about her would circulate among her colleagues. Her parents called me several times, but I didn't answer. It's unfortunate that I have to cut ties with them because they were such kind people, but that's the way it is. She contacted me dozens of times after I had done all of this, and when I answered, she was crying and threatening to kill me for wrecking her life. I don't believe anything I did was permanent, so she was simply being dramatic. She raged about how I humiliated her with the brief bits I shared, and how people now refer to her as Brianna of Tarth behind her back since she acted so aggressively in that video. That part made me laugh so hard. She was crying because everyone was now looking at her differently. I'll be honest, I was concerned she'd do something wild because the tantrum she threw at home wasn't quite the Brianna I knew. In the end, nothing occurred, at least not yet. I called the event coordinator and canceled all wedding-related activities. That portion was heartbreaking, I'll admit, but it had to happen. Once that was over, I realized she and I were done. The nicest part for me is that I'm bringing her to court to get compensation for ruining my stuff. I begged her to pay properly, but she just called me some nasty insults, so I don't mind putting her through some extra stress just for fun. She will have to pay a lawyer, lose days of work, and perhaps, be obliged to compensate me for everything she has ruined. Believe me, that was a lot. The matter is still pending, but I have a recording of her acting like a bull in a china shop, and I've already spoken with my lawyer, so there's no need to fear. She won't be getting out of this one. There's still a little sadness in my heart because something I had high hopes for didn't work out, but I'm glad I discovered how she truly saw me sooner rather than later. I'd rather be in pain right now than in much worse pain later. Anyway, a huge thank you to everyone who helped me out, especially with my prior post. I will read all of your comments here, so please let me know what you think of how I responded to her. Brief update. Oh, and a little update for anyone reading this thread. I was awarded $987 for everything she ruined in my flat, including hotel bills because I couldn't remain there and professional cleaning fees because the place was a complete disaster. I had a tremendous smile on my face because I was getting money from her after we split up. I guess she should have asked for a prenup. After kicking me out for my golden child half-brother, 6 months later, Dad now wants me to lie to cover up his crime or they'll go to jail. I, male, 18, turned 18 approximately 4 months ago, and my father kicked me out 6 months ago after my jerk half-brother Derek, 24M, wanted to go back home. He didn't want to rent a place like a normal person, so he chose to live with my father. Derek is my father's kid from his first relationship, but Derek's mother and father split up soon after he was born, so they didn't have much of a relationship after that. Derek is much closer to my father than he is to his mother, So we spent a lot of time together growing up since he came over more frequently than was legally required under his custody agreement. I believe he was meant to spend half of the month with my father, but he was always present. Or maybe that's just my brain exaggerating things because I despise spending time with him, but my father compelled us to. I also know that he disliked me and considered me a threat. My mother died a few years ago following a lengthy fight with lung cancer, and that's when things started to go wrong between me and my father. Don't get me wrong, things had been awful between us since I was a child. I suppose my father didn't really want a child like me, or perhaps he didn't want a child in general. Whatever it was, he treated me strangely when I was younger, and it nearly always seemed like he didn't want me around. Most of the time, he was angry with me and yelled at me for little matters. He never showed me affection, and when I tried to win him over, he responded with indifference. However, Derek was a very different guy. When Derek was around the house, my father transformed into the best father in the world, doing everything I asked of him. He compelled Derek and me to spend time together despite the fact that we both expressed a strong dislike for each other. Derek did not like me because he regarded me as a threat, and I did not like him since he used to bully me as a child. He was always trying to fight with me and push me around just because he could. He felt he could get away with it since my father would never speak against him. When I complained to my father about Derek being harsh with me, he told me to toughen up and deal with it because, allegedly, that's how boys should play, and he didn't want me to grow up to be a pansy. I assumed it was what my father expected of me, so I gradually learned to swallow my pride and accept it. I would never fight back because I didn't want to upset my father, and I knew fighting with Derek was a definite way to get shouted at. It didn't matter whether Derek was screwing things up for me, whenever I battled with him, I was always in the wrong. My father didn't care about the story. Whatever happened, I was always the bad person. It was clear that my father had a favorite, and it wasn't me, not even for a second. He didn't think it was weird that Derek was picking on me. Even though I was 6 years younger than him, Derek gradually modified his techniques of bullying me. When he began high school, he shifted to tormenting me with his pals because physically striking me was no longer effective as we grew older. Before that, school had been my safe haven because I was still in elementary school while he was in middle school, and we were in different buildings, so he couldn't reach me there. But after I started middle school, we were in the same building, and he and his cronies ganged up on me, constantly making fun of me. They even propagated malicious falsehoods about me, such as suggesting I was mentally handicapped. All the seniors recognized me as Derek's dumb younger brother. I'm not even kidding, that's what they used to call me. They would even call me slurs, which made things very tough for me. When kids approach middle school, they become more concerned with their reputation, so even my elementary school pals would no longer speak to me since I wasn't cool enough to hang out with them. It wasn't until Derek graduated that I got the school all to myself and could exist peacefully. I had a couple of friends, but most people just believed them, and I let them get away with it because I was so tired of fighting all the time that I couldn't bear to dispute. Things at home were exactly as horrible as they had always been since Derek and my father would never miss a chance to throw me down and make me feel like an idiot. The funniest thing was that I wasn't even an idiot. I received decent marks and excelled in science and other topics, but my father and Derek didn't care. Derek was a football player, but he was also a good student. You can imagine how difficult things must have been for me at home. Derek was everything I was not. Athletic, academically gifted, and exactly the kind of kid my father had always desired. On the other hand, there was me, who was completely average. They never failed to remind me of how insignificant and mediocre I was. My mother attempted to protect me most of the time, but my father was a real sweet talker, and he would convince her that what they said was just for fun and didn't mean anything. My mother, who was normally nice and sweet, was deeply in love with my father and never saw him for who he truly was. She did her best to protect me and I admired her efforts, but it wasn't enough. My father and Derek continued to bully me as long as they could. Finally, Derek left for college, and I felt relieved. My father was still present, but he was a lot less irritating to deal with without Derek continually picking on me. But before I could experience what it was like to live with my parents without Derek, my mother was stricken with lung cancer. It was extremely tough for us to accept since it felt like our entire world had been broken. My father and I only had one thing in common. We both adored my mother, thus her illness devastated us both. Instead of bringing our family closer, my father chose to make the worst of it. My mother was already hurting, but instead of my father and I putting up a brave front for her, he began to distance himself from her even more. Previously, he would at least speak to me, even if only to mock me, but following my mother's illness, he stopped doing that and began pretending I didn't exist at all. I can forgive him for it because we were both in pain, and he simply chose a different approach. I would have preferred that my mother's dilemma brought us closer together, but that was plainly not to be. Even if it was meant to be, my father was the type of person who would make it impossible because, for some reason, he despised me and couldn't tolerate the thought of me being happy. My mother's illness worsened over time, and my father's temper began to affect me. He would either not speak to me at all and utterly ignore me, or he would be really hostile to me. He almost made me weep several times because he was so disrespectful. I attempted to keep the peace in the family by not responding to my father since I knew it would only give him more reasons to berate and pick on me. When my mother was unwell, Derek would take it easy on me when he returned home from college, which I enjoyed. He wasn't polite to me, but at least he was human, which was all I could ask for. Things were horrible when my mother was still alive, but once she died, I went from frying pan to fire. Things were very quiet around the house for the first few months after my mother passed away. That meant I'd do all of the labor while my father stayed unresponsive. He was functional, he went to work, came home and ate dinner, but nothing else. I was concerned for him and phoned my grandparents several times, telling them that I suspected my father was depressed, but they did not take me seriously. They either didn't care enough about their son to check on him after the funeral, or they detested me as much as my father and refused to do what I asked. After a few months, my father began to return to his old self. Unfortunately, it also included excessive drinking, which made me feel bad about myself again. He would continuously force me to do chores around the house, which was quite exhausting because I was not only going to school but also doing all of the housework that my mother used to do even when she was sick. My father and I were able to complete everything, but after her death, all of the duty fell to me. I couldn't even complain because if I did, my father would tell me that I wasn't bringing in any money, so this was the least I could do to stay there. It was extremely offensive, but I had nowhere else to go, so I just had to put up with it. For a long time, the only thing I looked forward to was going to college since it meant I could finally be free of my father and not have to return home. I no longer considered that place to be my home because it had stopped feeling like home to me when my mother died. I could have moved out and started living with my mother's parents when she died, but they lived a long distance away, and I still had a year of school remaining, so that was not an option. Then a few months ago, when my father learned that his golden kid Derek would be returning home, he kicked me out. I ended up moving in with my grandparents. Derek had moved out for college a few years ago and has not returned to live with us since. After graduation, he found work and opted to stay where he was because his partner wanted to start a life away from home. Derek only came back for the holidays on occasion. He married his fiancée around 2 years ago since she was pregnant. They had just graduated and it felt like the perfect time to get married. Surprisingly, I got invited to the wedding. Derek didn't torture me for one day. My mother was also present, despite her health, and while Derek wasn't close to her, he couldn't deny that everyone liked her. Derek wasn't very close to his own mother because she was a lousy parent. Derek's mother was already in her 4th marriage at the time of his wedding, and it appeared that her major purpose in life was to be wealthy. She worked and made her own money, but it came at the expense of her connection with her kid. I suppose that explains why Derek was so attached to our father. He only had one parent who actually cared about him, and he didn't want to share that parent with me. Anyway, Derek married and had a child shortly afterwards. They had been living peacefully for the previous 2 years, but 6 months ago, for some reason, they decided to return. My father notified me about it 2 weeks before Derek was meant to arrive home. He was arrogant about it and sat me down one day to tell me I needed to find a place to live since Derek was returning. I had to give up my room. We had 3 bedrooms, so I questioned why they couldn't take the guest room. My father informed me that Derek and his wife would be living in the guest room and using my room as a nursery. It was allegedly important that I leave the house because I was about to turn 18 and become an adult. My father's insistence that I leave simply because Derek was relocating back with his family seemed unnecessary and selfish to me. I tried to argue with him, but there was no point, he had already made his decision. He gave me 2 weeks to leave and if I didn't, he said he'd contact the cops. I'm sure there was a legal way to challenge this, but I hadn't considered it at the time. I was terrified since I didn't trust my father and knew he was perfectly capable of kicking me out without warning. I scrambled to find a place and eventually decided to move in with my grandparents. I had resisted doing so because they lived so far away and I still needed to finish school, but I had no other choice. There were only a few weeks left in high school, so I was willing to take the chance. I moved out after a few days because I did not want to be present when Derek returned home with his wife and child. My father didn't seem to care when I moved out, and he didn't even say goodbye to me on the day I packed and left with the movers. My grandparents had come all the way to pick me up in their vehicle, and they were about to get into my father, but I told them it wasn't worth the hassle. It has been 6 months since that day, and I'm still living with my grandparents. I haven't spoken to my father since he kicked me out, and I had no intention of doing so again. I was meant to start college in a few weeks, and everything was already set up. I had absolutely no reason to speak with my father or Derek again. Unfortunately, they were the ones who had to contact me since something had happened, and they needed me to help them out. They paid me a visit a few days ago, which astonished me because I didn't expect them to contact me at all. Still, my grandparents let them in, and I decided to talk to them because they sounded desperate. I discovered that Derek had returned with his family because he had lost his job and was struggling to pay his rent, so he took the difficult decision to return. His wife was fine with it because she preferred to be a stay-at-home mother and did not want to work till their child was older, so this was their best option. When they returned, they anticipated to find work quickly, but that was not the case because none of the nearby businesses were hiring, and persons with Derek's skill set were extremely prevalent. He wasn't a spectacular candidate, either. My father somehow managed to secure him a position at the company where he worked. Neither of them were happy about it because it paid less than Derek's previous salary, but it was all they had, so they had to make the best of it. Derek had been stealing from the company for several months until it was discovered a few weeks ago. My father and Derek were both in trouble because their bosses suspected they were working together and threatened to sue them if they did not return the money immediately. The only reason they hadn't been sued yet was because it was a family business and the CEO was a close friend of my mother's. He hadn't filed a case against them for embezzlement yet because he respected her, but he wasn't going to wait long. My father and Derek asked me to help them. They asked me to say that they required the money for my college fund and had been stealing for the purpose rather than personal gain. My father hoped that this would persuade the CEO to be patient with them and give them more time to return the money. They knew they'd still be fired, but at least they wouldn't go to prison. They were counting on me to assist them and build the ideal picture of the poor, innocent victim. I could not believe they had the arrogance to ask for this after how they had treated me my entire life. I answered no almost instantly, without even thinking about it, because their plan was stupid, and I didn't want to be a part of that. When I informed them I wasn't interested in assisting them, they became irritated and told me I had to since there was a very real possibility they would wind up in jail. They stated I couldn't allow an old grudge to spoil their lives. I told them it wasn't a little grudge and it surely wasn't from years ago. My father had only recently kicked me out, and it hadn't even been a year, so I'd consider it rather recent. But that wasn't the only reason I didn't want to aid them. I thought their scheme was dishonest, and I knew the guy my father worked for. As I already stated, my mother and he were very close friends and he really liked me. He and my mother had grown up together, and I used to address him as uncle whenever he was over. Even at my mother's funeral, we had a pleasant chat and liked one another. I moved out after a few days because I did not want to be present when Derek returned home with his wife and child. My father didn't seem to care when I moved out, and he didn't even say goodbye to me on the day I packed and left with the movers. My grandparents had come all the way to pick me up in their vehicle, and they were about to get into my father, but I told them it wasn't worth the hassle. It has been 6 months since that day, and I'm still living with my grandparents. I haven't spoken to my father since he kicked me out, and I had no intention of doing so again. I was meant to start college in a few weeks, and everything was already set up. I had absolutely no reason to speak with my father or Derek again. Unfortunately, they were the ones who had to contact me since something had happened, and they needed me to help them out. They paid me a visit a few days ago, which astonished me because I didn't expect them to contact me at all. Still, my grandparents let them in, and I decided to talk to them because they sounded desperate. I discovered that Derek had returned with his family because he had lost his job and was struggling to pay his rent, so he made the difficult decision to return. His wife was fine with it because she preferred to be a stay-at-home mother and did not want to work till their child was older, so this was their best option. When they returned, they anticipated finding work quickly, but that was not the case because none of the nearby businesses were hiring. And persons with Derek's skill set were extremely prevalent. He wasn't a spectacular candidate either. My father somehow managed to secure him a position at the company where he worked. Neither of them were happy about it because it paid less than Derek's previous salary, but it was all they had, so they had to make the best of it. Derek had been stealing from the company for several months until it was discovered a few weeks ago. My father and Derek were both in trouble because their bosses suspected they were working together and threatened to sue them if they did not return the money immediately. The only reason they hadn't been sued yet was because it was a family business and the CEO was a close friend of my mother's. He hadn't filed a case against them for embezzlement yet because he respected her, but he wasn't going to wait long. My father and Derek asked me to help them. They asked me to say that they required the money for my college fund and had been stealing for that purpose rather than personal gain. My father hoped that this would persuade the CEO to be patient with them and give them more time to return the money. They knew they'd still be fired, but at least they wouldn't go to prison. They were counting on me to assist them and build the ideal picture of the poor innocent victim. I could not believe they had the arrogance to ask for this after how they had treated me my entire life. I answered no almost instantly, without even thinking about it, because their plan was stupid, and I didn't want to be a part of that. When I informed them I wasn't interested in assisting them, they became irritated and told me I had to since there was a very real possibility they would wind up in jail. They stated I couldn't allow an old grudge spoil their lives. I told them it wasn't a little grudge, and it surely wasn't from years ago. My father had only recently kicked me out, and it hadn't even been a year, so I'd consider it rather recent. But that wasn't the only reason I didn't want to aid them. I thought their scheme was dishonest, and I knew the guy my father worked for. As I already stated, my mother and he were very close friends and he really liked me. He and my mother had grown up together, and I used to address him as uncle whenever he was over. Even at my mother's funeral, we had a pleasant chat and liked one another. My mother had actually told him to give my father a job at his company when he was struggling, but instead of being grateful, Derek had tried to make a joke of these people, and now my father was attempting to cover it all up by using me as a shield. I thought that was quite low, and I couldn't in good conscience be a part of it. So I informed them that it would be in their best interest to simply pay off whatever amount they had stolen rather than try to cover it up with more lies since I was not going to side with them. They might land up in jail if they tried to deceive him again. In truth, they should have been pleased that they were given the opportunity to repay the money and avoid a lawsuit, which they would almost certainly lose. That would jeopardize their future since they would undoubtedly go to jail. They had no idea how simple things were for them right now, or how complicated things would become if they carried out their mad plan. I tried to explain it to them, but my father became enraged and refused to listen to my speech. If I wanted to help them, I would support their strategy rather than give them useless advice. So I informed him I was not going to be a part of this, and to my astonishment my father began crying. I'd never seen anything like this before, and it made me very uneasy. He informed me that he had been banking on me because, at the end of the day, I was his son, and that no matter what had happened in the past, he would have supported me if I had been in a similar situation. He stated he expected the same from me because this was such a big matter, and he didn't want to go to prison. Derek felt the same way and urged me to help them since he knew I was popular among my mother's friends and was the only one who could help them. My mother would have made things much easier, but now that she was gone, I was the next best person to deal with it, and they relied on me. It was difficult, but I still had to decline them. I pushed them to come clean and pay back the money they owed. They were enraged and claimed that the only reason I was screwing them over was because they used to tease me when I was younger, and they were dissatisfied with how I handled things today. They departed after that, but I'm still thinking about it and the guilt is eating at me. I keep picturing them in jail, and it just doesn't seem right. At the same time, I do not want to be a part of something unlawful or immoral. It would be an insult to my mother since I would be using her friendship to manipulate a very close friend of hers. I'm terribly torn about what I should do, and time is of the key because my dad and Derek don't have forever to pay off their debt. So am I a jerk for refusing to lie and cover up for my father and half-brother, who have bullied me my whole life? Update 1. I've made a decision, and I believe I'll keep not assisting them out. Not only is it immoral and unethical, but it is also unlawful. And I refuse to be a part of it. If my father and Derek want to stay out of jail, they will have to handle this themselves. It's not like they're in mortal peril. They've been offered the opportunity to make things right, repay the money Derek stole, and get out of this without jeopardizing their image. They can choose to return all of the money and handle this themselves, so I have no cause to feel guilty. The majority of the comments here urge that I keep out of this, not just because my father and Derek were terrible people, but also because what they were doing was horrific, and I wouldn't be able to carry it on my conscience and move on as they would. We're clearly not made of the same stuff, and I wouldn't want to do something like this, which is why I've decided to keep out of it. If they contact me after this, I will block them. For the record, they are already blocked everywhere, but I'm sure they'll try alternative numbers or social media accounts to reach me. My grandparents also believe I'm doing the right thing by remaining out of this because they are responsible for cleaning up the mess they made. It makes no sense to expect anything from me after how they've treated me for so long. Update 2. Hi. So, as expected, my father texted me today. He last visited me 8 days ago and we haven't spoken since. As I already stated, he called me from a different number that I was unfamiliar with and I answered the phone unintentionally. I hung up as soon as I heard my father's voice on the other end, but I was a little slow to block him, so he was able to text me. In the message, he claimed he understood I didn't want to talk about it any further, but he and Derek were in serious difficulty and needed my help. He claimed that their employer was constantly breathing down their necks, threatening to sue if they did not refund the money. It made me feel guilty, but I texted him back and told him that I would not be assisting them and that he should start searching for alternative ways to refund the money rather than avoiding the matter. I then blocked him, hoping he understood where I was coming from. Even if he doesn't, I hope he does the right thing. I don't want to have a father in prison. Update 3. Hey, I haven't heard back from my father yet, but my grandparents contacted my mother's friend, the CEO, to inquire about his plans. We hadn't contacted him previously because he's a busy man, and we didn't want to press him too hard, but we wanted to know what was going on because communicating with my father or Derek was no longer an option. So my grandfather spoke with him, and he informed us that he intended to file a lawsuit if he did not receive the money back within a few months. He claimed he was willing to let everything go due to his friendship with my mother, but he couldn't forgive the debt. Honestly, I respected that. He was much more tolerant than most people would have been in this position. He even apologized to me, saying he was sorry for what was occurring, but I told him it was no big deal because I no longer live with my father, and honestly, my father deserves it. We don't know what will happen, but I believe my father is wise enough to realize that he needs to repay the money in some way to avoid going to jail. It will take some time, but I'm confident they will work it out, and I won't have to worry. I also had a long conversation with my mother's buddy, who informed me that before she died, my mother had spoken with him and stated that if I ever wanted to intern anywhere for some fast cash or simply get a job in general, his door was always open. That's good to know, and I'll keep it in mind for the future. Even after she's gone, my mother still looks out for me, which makes me very happy. 15 years as a stepmom, never felt like family. Until my stepkids had children, and what happened next transformed our relationship completely. I'm Stacy, 42F, and I never anticipated I'd be in this situation. My husband Harry, 46, and I have been married for 15 years, but our journey began much earlier. We met in a local coffee shop, where I was working part-time while finishing off my social work degree. Harry was a regular client who usually ordered the same thing, a big black coffee and a blueberry muffin. He'd walked in with his twins, Lucas and Lydia, now 25, who were just 7 at the time. I recall when I first saw them. Harry appeared fatigued as he tried to manage 2 rambunctious children while balancing his briefcase and coffee. I offered to help them transport their snacks to a table. That tiny act of compassion started a conversation, and we became friends over the course of a few months. Harry revealed to me that he was a widower. His wife Anna died when the twins were just 3 years old. She was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer shortly after giving birth and died after receiving significant treatment. Harry was left to raise 2 toddlers alone while also working as a high school history teacher. As our friendship expanded, so did my feelings for the twins. They were adorable children, but I could see the pain and confusion in their eyes. Lucas was shy and reserved, constantly sticking to his father's side, whilst Lydia was more gregarious but prone to dramatic outbursts. I began to look forward to their visits, even on my days off. It took Harry about a year to ask me out on a proper date. We were both scared about dating again after losing his wife, and I was concerned about potentially disturbing the lives of 2 children who had already been through a lot. However, we decided to give it a try. Our bond developed slowly. We were careful not to rush anything, especially with the twins. I didn't see them as Dad's girlfriend until we'd been together for 6 months. Even then, we kept things casual by going to the park or watching movies at home. The first major challenge occurred when Harry asked me to move in with them after we'd been dating for 2 years. The twins were 9 years old at the time, and their opinions were varied. Lucas withdrew even farther, not speaking with me for weeks. Lydia, on the other hand, was thrilled at first but then began acting out, screaming tantrums and refusing to follow the rules. It was a hard moment. I was trying to find my position in this ready-made family while still honoring Anna's memory. Harry and I had numerous late-night conversations about how to address the matter. We even contemplated marital therapy to help us navigate this unfamiliar territory. Things gradually improved. I made an intentional effort to spend one-on-one time with each twin. I realized Lucas had a passion for making model airplanes, and we began working on projects together. I signed Lydia up for a pottery class, which became our Saturday morning tradition. When Harry proposed a year later, we sat down with the twins to discuss it before I responded. We wanted them to feel included in the decision-making process. It was not a simple chat. Lydia wondered if this indicated I was attempting to replace their mother. Lucas wondered if they'd have to call me Mom now. We informed them that I was not trying to replace Anna and that they could call me whatever they wanted. Finally, they granted their blessing, and we were married in a simple ceremony in our backyard. Our only attendants were the twins, Lucas as best man and Lydia as maid of honor. It wasn't ideal, but it was appropriate for our family. The years that followed were filled with both delight and challenges. We had our fair share of family trips, movie nights and holiday celebrations, but we also coped with the twins' adolescent rebellions, academic challenges and the constant grieving process as they got older and learned more about the mother they had lost. I did my best to be present for them without overstepping. I helped with their homework, went to their school events, and even learned how to make Anna's renowned chocolate chip cookies from an old recipe card. There were times when I felt like a member of the family, such as when Lydia asked me to help her shop for her first bra or Lucas confided in me about his first crush. But there were moments when I felt like an outsider. Every year on Anna's birthday, the three of them went to her grave, while I stayed at home. Family gatherings with Harry's parents frequently included reminiscing about Anna, and I felt embarrassed not knowing how to contribute. Despite these hurdles, we were able to build a nice friendship throughout the years. It wasn't ideal, but we made it work. I'd always hoped they'd regard me as more than just their father's wife, perhaps even as a parental figure, but I knew that might not happen. Fast forward to the present day, Lydia welcomed her first kid, a lovely baby girl, last month. She and her husband Jake, 26M, named her Annabelle. Lydia shared a touching post on social media about how they chose the name to honor her late mother, Anna, and Jake's grandmother, B. I was truly thrilled for them. I recall holding Lydia's hand through her wedding day nerves, and now she is a mother herself. But reading the comments made me feel a twinge of hurt. Friends and family commented on how lovely it was that they honored both grandmothers. It dawned on me then that, in their views, I was not regarded as a grandma at all. I did not want to cause a fuss. I didn't want to take away Lydia and Jake's special time. So I liked the post, made a congratulatory comment and tried to put my emotions aside. A week later, we had a family meal to commemorate the new arrival. Lucas was there with his wife, Emma, 24F, who is expecting their first kid in a couple of months. During dinner, Lucas casually remarked that they were thinking of naming their baby after Harry if it was a male or Emma's mom if it was a girl. I felt the usual agony again, but smiled and nodded in unison with everyone else. After dinner, while Harry and the kids were gushing over newborn Annabelle in the living room, I went out onto the porch for some fresh air. My sister, Jenny, 39F, was visiting and followed me out. Jenny and I have always been close, and she has been my confidant throughout this process of becoming a stepmother. She sensed something was wrong, and after some probing, I confided in her. I told her how I felt left out, how even after 15 years, I felt like an outsider in my own family. I said that while I realized it was ridiculous to be offended over baby names, it further reinforced the reality that the twins would never genuinely see me as family. What I didn't realize was that Harry had come looking for me and overheard some of our talk. He waited until Jenny walked inside before confronting me. He was furious that I hadn't told him about my feelings, arguing that as my husband and the twins' father, he should have been the first to know. I attempted to explain that I didn't want to burden him or cause problems for him and the kids. I realized there was nothing I could do because sentiments and relationships cannot be forced, but Harry insisted on talking to the twins about including me more. I begged him not to, knowing it would only make things awkward and perhaps harm the bond we already have. Harry accused me of concealing secrets and claimed he had the right to know what was going on in his family. We ended up having a heated disagreement, with him accusing me of being selfish for not confiding in him, and me believing he was entirely missing the issue. Things have been tight at home. Harry is still furious that I spoke with Jenny instead of him, and I'm frustrated that he doesn't understand why I kept it to myself. I'm dreading having the twins over for a family cookout this weekend. I'm not sure how to act around them now, knowing Harry might say something. Is it wrong for me not to tell my husband about my feelings? Should I have confided in him despite knowing he'd try to fix things? I am at a loss on what to do next. Update 1. It's been nearly a month since my previous post, and a lot has happened. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their advice and support, which truly helped me gain perspective on the issue. The family cookout, which I was dreading, turned out to be a watershed moment. Despite my pleas, Harry decided to speak with the twins about including me more. As I had expected, things did not start off well. The day began innocently enough. Harry was at the grill. I was putting together the picnic table, and the twins came with their spouses and baby Annabelle. There was the normal gushing over the baby and catching up on recent happenings, but I could sense Harry was nervous, and I readied myself for what I knew would happen. After we'd finished eating, Harry cleared his throat and announced that we needed to have a family conversation. Lucas and Lydia exchanged perplexed looks. Harry began by expressing his pride in the family we had formed together over the last 15 years. Then he delivered the bombshell. He informed the twins that I felt left out and hurt, particularly because I was not considered Annabelle's grandmother. The twins were noticeably shocked. Lydia, still battling with postpartum hormones, burst into sobs. She claimed she never intended to hurt me and had never considered it that way. Lucas, the more restrained one, simply looked uncomfortable and muttered something about wanting to check on Emma. I felt humiliated. This was precisely why I hadn't wanted to say anything. I attempted to calm things down by stating it wasn't a huge issue and that I was just being too sensitive, but Harry, bless his heart, wouldn't let it go. He insisted that we all sit down and discuss it. The conversation that followed was passionate and emotional, lasting several hours. We discussed the past 15 years, both the good and the bad. The twins talked about their devotion to their mother's memories and their early resentment of me. Lucas said that when I first came in, he was concerned I was attempting to replace his mother. He admitted that he used to hide the few images they had of Anna, afraid I would get rid of them. It crushed my heart to hear this, because I had always tried to cherish Anna's memory. Lydia admitted that she sometimes felt bad about admiring me, as if it were a violation of her mother's memories. She told of a time when she was 13 and had her first period while Harry was abroad at a conference. She expressed her gratitude that I was there to assist her, but she also felt bad that her mother was not present to enjoy that moment with her. I confessed my personal insecurities and my ongoing struggle to find my position within the family. I told them about the times I'd stayed up late to help with school projects, the soccer games and dancing recitals I'd attended, and how pleased I was of each accomplishment. But I also admitted to feeling hurt when I was presented as Dad's wife, rather than as a parental figure. To my amazement, Lucas and Lydia had no idea how I felt. They revealed that they had always seen me as a positive influence in their life, but they had no idea how much I had spent emotionally. We all cried a lot that day. It was difficult, but also cathartic. By the end, we had come to a new understanding. The twins realized that while I could never replace their mother, I had been a consistent and loving presence in their lives. They apologized for not acknowledging my role more clearly. I apologized for not articulating my feelings more effectively throughout the years. We all decided that in the future, we would make a greater effort to communicate our gratitude to one another. The BBQ concluded on a considerably lighter note than it began. Lydia grabbed me hard as they left, whispering, "We love you, Stacy. You are family, and always have been." Since then things have changed. There is a new openness in our connections. Lucas and Emma have started asking for my advice on baby names, and Lydia has been sending me photos of Annabelle on a regular basis, frequently with notes like, "Grandma Stacy's little angel." Lydia called me last week in a panic because Annabelle was running a high temperature. She said, "Mom, I don't know what to do." It was the first time she'd ever called me Mom, and while she was probably too stressed to notice, it meant the world to me. After everyone had left, Harry and I had a private conversation. I explained why I had been hesitant to express my sentiments to him, and he apologized for reacting so passionately. We've both made a commitment to improve our communication moving forward. It isn't perfect, and we're all still figuring things out, but for the first time in 15 years, I actually feel like a member of the family. Sometimes it takes a difficult encounter to clear the air and go on. Update 2. It has been 6 months since my last report, and I would like to highlight some big changes in our family dynamics. 2 months ago, Lucas and Emma welcomed their baby child. They named him Christopher Thomas, after Emma's father and Harry. But here's what surprised me. They wanted me to be the godmother. When they explained their decision, Lucas stated, "Stacy, you've always been a source of strength and love in our life. We want our youngsters to have the same unshakable presence." I was moved beyond words. It felt like a genuine appreciation of my role in their lives. The baptism ceremony was magnificent, and when holding little Christopher, I felt an unexpected wave of love. The twins' christening brought up memories of their childhood. I recall one day when Lucas was about 10 years old and had a large school presentation. He was so frightened that morning that he became ill. Harry had a crucial meeting that he couldn't miss, so I stayed at home with Lucas. We spent the morning rehearsing his speech, and I taught him some deep breathing methods to help calm his anxieties. When he arrived home that afternoon, beaming with pleasure from his great presentation, he hugged me tightly and said, "Thank you, Stacy. You are the best." That was one of the first times I really felt like a parent to him. Lydia has also been making attempts. She's been phoning me nearly every day, asking for guidance on anything from diaper rash to sleep routines. Last week, she invited me to a grandma-granddaughter day out with Annabelle. We went shopping, ate lunch, and she introduced me to her pals as my other mom, Stacy. I'll be honest, that made me cry a little. Lydia shared a wedding-related reminiscence with us on our day out. She informed me that shortly before walking down the aisle, she experienced a moment of terror and wished her mother was present. But then she looked over and saw me, and a sense of serenity came over her. She went on, "I realized then that while I'll always miss my mom, I'm so grateful to have you too. Harry has been absolutely supportive throughout this. He's made a concerted effort to engage me in family choices and discussions about the grandchildren. He frequently reminds the twins to keep me informed about things, which I appreciate. However, not everything has gone smoothly. We encountered a minor snag last month when Harry's parents came to visit. They made some casual remarks about how fortunate the twins were to have their real grandparents around. I saw Harry tense up, about to say something, but Lucas and Lydia jumped in to correct him. They insisted that I was just as much a grandparent to their children. It made me proud to watch them stand up for our relationship. Harry's parents were taken aback but appeared to accept it. Later, Harry apologized for his parents' actions, but I told him that it was unnecessary. The fact that the twins had protected me meant more than an apology. We're arranging a huge family vacation next month, including the grandchildren. It's the first time we've done something like this, so I'm both excited and nervous. But ultimately, I'm thankful for how far we've come. This trip has taught me that family is more than blood and titles. It is about love, understanding, and the willingness to go through challenging emotions together. I'm looking forward to many more years of being Grandma Stacy to these amazing grandchildren. Update 3. It's been a year since my first post, and I'd want to provide a last update on our family's journey. The family vacation I mentioned in my last update was a watershed moment for us. We leased a beach home for 2 weeks, and it was the first time we'd been together for an extended amount of time since the twins left for college. Spending time together strengthened our ties. Of course, there were tense moments. Living in close quarters with in-laws and tiny children isn't easy. We had a few disagreements about who was responsible for babysitting and who was in charge of cooking dinner. But there were also numerous instances of delight and laughing. One day, we went to the beach together. Watching Harry and Christopher construct sandcastles while Lydia and I took turns dipping Annabelle's toes in the surf gave me a sense of contentment I hadn't felt before. That evening, as we gathered around a bonfire roasting marshmallows and telling stories, Lydia stepped up and announced that she and Jake are expecting their second child in around 7 months. Then she smiled at me and said, "Stacy, if it's a girl, we'd like to name her after you, Stacy Anna, to honor both the amazing women who have been mothers to me." I was speechless. Harry squeezed my hand and I could tell he was also in tears. Lucas added that if they have a girl next, they would like to do the same. It was an experience I will never forget. The remainder of the holiday was spent talking excitedly about the new baby and remembering the twins' childhood. One evening, Lucas took out an old photo album he had brought with him. As we glanced through it, we noticed a photo from their high school graduation. In it I stood between Lucas and Lydia, all of us smiling at the camera. Lucas pointed to it and remarked, "You know, Stacy, I remember this day vividly. I was quite apprehensive about my speech, and you spent the entire morning helping me practice. I could not have done it without you." Since returning from vacation, our relationships have only gotten stronger. The twins frequently joke about their children having 3 sets of grandparents. Harry's parents, their in-laws, and ourselves. They ensure that we are all equally involved in our grandchildren's lives. Last month, when Christopher took his first steps, Lucas made sure to FaceTime us so we could see it live. Lydia contacted me in tears last week because Annabelle had said her first word, Nana, as she calls me. Throughout all of this, Harry and I have become closer. He has told me several times that he is proud of how I have handled everything and that he is grateful for the love I have offered his children throughout the years. He surprised me the other day by pulling up our old wedding video. We spent the evening viewing it, laughing at how young we all looked and reflecting on how far we'd come. Last week was our 16th wedding anniversary. The twins surprised us with a family photo shoot featuring all 4 grandparents, themselves, their spouses, and the grandchildren. When we received the images, one stuck out. It was a picture of myself with Lucas, Lydia, and the grandchildren, all of us laughing at something off camera. Looking at it, you'd never guess I wasn't their biological mother. Lydia had it framed and gave it to me with the following note. "To the woman who chose to love us, thank you for being our bonus mom. We love you." As I sit here writing this, with the photo on my desk, I am overwhelmed with thankfulness. This path has not been simple, but it has been extremely rewarding. To anyone dealing in a mixed family scenario, I encourage them to keep loving, trying and talking. It may take some time, but it is worth it. Our family is not perfect, but it is our own. We still have disputes and misunderstandings, But we approach them with open hearts and honest communication. The road ahead isn't always apparent, but I'm interested to see where it takes us. As for me, I'm excited to meet baby Stacy Anna in a few months and continue to make memories with this beautiful family that I'm so privileged to be a part of. My infertile sister-in-law attacked me at my baby shower. Now she wants to meet my daughter after losing her own baby. I've been married to my hubby, Sam, 34M, for 7 years. We met at a mutual friend's wedding in 2016. I was a bridesmaid and Sam was a groomsman. We were matched to go down the aisle together and there was an instant connection between us. Following the wedding, we spent the entire reception chatting and laughing. By the end of the night, we had swapped numbers and planned our first date. Following that, our relationship swiftly progressed. We learned we had a lot in common, including a passion for hiking, a similar interest in true crime podcasts, and a desire to create a family eventually. After a year of dating, Sam proposed during a twilight trek on our favorite trail. 6 months later, we celebrated a gorgeous fall wedding with our closest friends and family. We knew we wanted children from the outset. We began trying for a baby shortly after our honeymoon. At first, it was exhilarating. We joked about whether the baby would inherit my curly hair or Sam's dimples. But as the months went without a positive pregnancy test, that elation faded into anxiety. We attempted everything to improve our chances. I began meticulously tracking my ovulation, and we both made lifestyle adjustments. Sam stopped smoking, a habit he had since college. I gave up my favorite morning coffee. We joined the gym together, determined to get in the best shape of our lives, but nothing changed. After 2 years of unsuccessful attempts, we decided to see a reproductive doctor. Dr. Anderson performed various tests on both of us. The weeks spent waiting for findings were some of the most stressful of our life. When the results were eventually in, they were frustratingly inconclusive. There was no obvious explanation why we couldn't conceive. Dr. Anderson recommended us to keep trying, stating that sometimes these things simply need time. During this time, Sam's younger sister, Rachel, 29F, married her college sweetheart, Jack, 31M. Their wedding was a spectacular occasion, and I remember feeling envious as Rachel tossed her bouquet and joked about how she and Jack would be the next to have a baby. Little did I know how important that moment would be in our lives. As our struggle to conceive progressed, we began to feel isolated from our friends and family. It appeared that everyone around us was having babies effortlessly. Our social media accounts were flooded with pregnancy announcements and baby images, and each one felt like a hit in the gut. We began declining invites to baby showers and first birthday parties, finding them too hard to attend. After 5 years of trying, it finally happened. I was a week late, but I was reluctant to take a test because I didn't want to be disappointed again. Sam finally bought a pregnancy test and pushed me to use it. When those 2 pink lines emerged, we both erupted into tears of happiness. We must have taken 5 additional exams just to be certain. Given our background, we chose to wait until 12 weeks to announce the pregnancy. The weeks spent concealing our secret were both thrilling and terrible. Every sensation or wave of discomfort pushed me into a frenzy, fearing something might go wrong. But when our 12-week scan revealed our tiny bean dancing around on the screen, we realized it was time to express our delight. We announced our pregnancy during a family meal. Sam's parents were having their annual summer barbecue, which seemed like an ideal chance. When we announced the news, the response was extraordinary. Sam's mother burst into delighted tears, his father hugged him tightly, and my parents could not stop smiling. It was a magnificent moment that I will remember forever. Despite the excitement and congrats, I couldn't help but observe Rachel's reaction. While everyone else was rejoicing, she remained sad, her expression unreadable. When she eventually came over to congratulate us, her hug was stiff and her grin couldn't reach her eyes. I dismissed it at the time, figuring she was simply stunned by the news. As my pregnancy progressed, we began to prepare for our baby's birth. We transformed our home office into a nursery by painting the walls in a gentle mint green. Sam's father assisted us in assembling the crib, which turned out to be a full-day event complete with pizza and non-alcoholic beverages for me. My mother and I spent weekends shopping at thrift stores seeking one-of-a-kind, vintage-inspired baby outfits. Rachel's behavior remained unusual during this period. She rarely inquired about the pregnancy, and when she did, she frequently used a negative tone. When I was showing Rachel a beautiful hand-knitted blanket created by my grandmother, she said that it was a shame to put so much effort into something that would most likely be spit up on. Despite Rachel's attitude, we tried to involve her in the prenatal process. We invited her and Jack to our gender reveal celebration, where we learned we were expecting a girl. Rachel arrived late, barely chatted with anyone, and left early, stating she had a headache. As my due date approached, Sam's mother volunteered to throw us a baby shower. We were delighted by her offer and gladly accepted. The day of the shower arrived, and our house was packed with friends and family eager to celebrate our soon-to-arrive baby girl. Rachel arrived an hour late, clearly upset. Without saying anything, she pushed a gift into my hands and walked directly to the food table. Throughout the celebration, she made snarky remarks about the decorations, games, and even the gifts that others brought. I overheard her tell Jack that the entire affair was tacky and over the top. When it came time to receive gifts, everything went downhill quickly. Rachel's face darkened as I unwrapped each item and thanked the donor. When I unwrapped her gift, a simple white onesie, she stood up and exclaimed, "This is so unfair." The room fell hushed as Rachel continued her diatribe. She ranted about how she had been trying to conceive for years, how she deserved to be a mother more than I did, and how unfair life was. Then, to everyone's surprise, she grabbed the cake knife off the table and lunged at me. Fortunately, Sam's quick reflexes saved the day. He managed to grab Rachel's arm before she could get to me. During the ensuing turmoil, someone contacted the police. Rachel was arrested for attempted assault, and the baby shower ended abruptly. I was shaken to my core. The notion that my sister-in-law had attempted to hurt me and possibly my unborn kid was beyond comprehension. Sam was heartbroken, split between concern for me and disbelief over his sister's behavior. Following the incident, Jack begged us not to press charges. He explained that Rachel had been dealing with infertility and despair, and that she was not in her right mind. But Sam and I couldn't let it go. We chose to press charges because we felt Rachel ought to face the consequences of her actions. Rachel is currently in jail awaiting trial, and our family is torn apart. Some family members believe we are being overly harsh and should dismiss the charges for the sake of family harmony. Others agree with our conclusion, claiming Rachel's acts were reprehensible regardless of her mental state. I can't help feeling guilty. Did I push Rachel too hard by celebrating my pregnancy when I knew she was struggling? Should I have been more sympathetic to her emotions? But then I remember how she endangered not just me, but also my unborn kid, and I feel right in our decision to have my sister-in-law arrested during my baby shower. Update 1. It's been a month since the baby shower incident, and much has changed. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their help and advice. Our family has been going through a difficult time, and your words have provided some comfort. Rachel's trial was scheduled for next month, but there have been some unexpected changes. About 2 weeks ago, Jack asked Sam if we might meet to discuss the situation. After some deliberation, we decided to meet in a neutral location, a small coffee shop that Sam and I used to go to when we first started dating. When we arrived, not only did we find Jack, but also Rachel's parents. Rachel's mother, Linda, 58F, immediately began pleading with us to dismiss the accusations. She stated that Rachel had been diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety, and that she was now taking medication and receiving therapy. Linda maintained that Rachel didn't belong in jail and that she needed help rather than punishment. As Linda spoke, I couldn't help but recall the early days of Sam and Rachel's relationship, when Sam first introduced me to the family. Rachel had been friendly and hospitable. We even developed a friendship, going shopping together or having girls' nights with wine and rom-coms. It was difficult to accept that Rachel was the one who had come at me with a knife. Jack then revealed the bombshell. Rachel was pregnant. Apparently, they had been going through IVF, and their most recent try had been successful. Jack stated Rachel found out just days before our baby shower but was too overwhelmed to comprehend it properly. He hypothesized that her outburst was caused by a combination of hormones and mental health difficulties. I was stunned. Part of me sympathized with Rachel, understanding how overwhelming her feelings must have been, but another part of me couldn't get over the dread I felt when she approached me with that knife. I remembered the chilly look in her eyes, so unlike Rachel I thought I knew. Sam and I separated ourselves to talk about the problem quietly. We walked to a neighboring park, where we used to go for picnics in the beginning of our relationship. As we sat on a bench, the enormity of the decision before us felt overpowering. We were split. On the one hand, we knew Rachel was going through a difficult period and needed assistance. We reflected on our years of friendship with her, the holidays we had spent together, and the private jokes we shared. On the other hand, her actions had endangered me and our pregnant kid, and we believed she should face the consequences. Following a lengthy conversation, we agreed to speak with our lawyer about the potential of a plea bargain. We didn't want to drop the charges totally, but we were willing to work out a solution that would guarantee Rachel got the care she needed while simultaneously holding her accountable for her conduct. When we returned to the coffee shop and conveyed our opinions, Jack and Rachel's parents were relieved. They thanked us sincerely for our willingness to offer an alternative to jail time. Linda hugged me with tears in her eyes, and I was reminded of happier times with this family. As we exited the coffee shop, I had a range of feelings. I was still outraged about what had happened, but I also had a glimmer of faith that our family could recover from it. Sam gripped my hand as we headed to our car, and I knew whatever occurred, we'd deal with it together. The next day, we met with our lawyer to talk about our alternatives. She suggested that a plea deal could be a good solution, potentially leading to Rachel receiving mandated therapy, community service, and probation instead of jail time. We decided to proceed with this technique. However, things took an unexpected turn when we received a call from Jack later that week. Rachel was hospitalized owing to pregnancy difficulties. The stress of the impending trial, along with her mental health difficulties, had taken its toll on her physical health. Jack sounded fatigued and worried over the phone. He informed us that Rachel had begun bleeding and was at risk of losing the baby. As he talked, I felt a rush of contradictory feelings. Despite everything that had transpired, I would never wish the agony of losing a pregnancy on anyone, especially Rachel, given how long she had been trying to conceive. We're now in a difficult position. The trial has been postponed due to Rachel's condition, and we're questioning if we're doing the right thing. Are we being overly tough or not harsh enough? It's a fine balance between justice, compassion, and family devotion, and I'm not convinced we're getting it right. In light of this, Sam and I have spent a lot of time discussing our own approaching parenthood. We've started taking parenting classes, and each one reminds us of the immense responsibility we're about to take on. It has made us even more determined to provide a safe and stable environment for our daughter. I will keep you updated as things go. Thank you all for your continued support during this difficult time. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my previous update, and Rachel's position has taken some unforeseen turns. I apologize for the lack of updates. Things have been stressful, to say the least. First, I should say that I gave birth to our lovely daughter, Lily, 6 weeks ago. Despite the stress of Rachel's ongoing condition, the birth was a success and Lily and I are both fine. Sam has been an incredible father, and we are gradually adjusting to life with the newborn. The night Lily was born was a tornado of emotion. My labor began abruptly 2 weeks early, and everything happened very rapidly. Sam was fantastic throughout the procedure, holding my hand and encouraging me every step of the way. When we finally heard Lily's first cry, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. Holding her for the first time, I experienced a love I had never imagined imaginable. We were in a state of new parent euphoria for the first several days in the hospital, but reality hit us hard when we learned about Rachel. As I said in my previous report, Rachel was hospitalized owing to pregnancy difficulties. Unfortunately, despite her medical team's best efforts, Rachel lost the baby at 16 weeks. It was a heartbreaking blow for her and Jack, sending shockwaves throughout the family. I recall when Sam broke the news to me. We were in our hospital room, with Lily resting soundly in her bassinet. Sam's face paled as he recounted the information he had just received from his parents. My heart fell. Despite everything that had occurred between us, I would never wish such suffering on anyone. Rachel's mental health deteriorated significantly following this catastrophe. She was admitted to a mental health hospital for intensive therapy. Given the circumstances, our counsel told us that pursuing the charges at this time was unlikely to be in anyone's best interests. After much deliberation and soul-searching, Sam and I agreed to drop the charges. It was not an easy decision, and part of me is still conflicted about it. However, witnessing Rachel in such a vulnerable situation made us understand that what she requires right now is assistance and support, not legal punishment. We made it plain to Jack and Rachel's parents that our choice was subject to certain conditions. Rachel must continue her therapy and treatment, and she is not permitted to have any unsupervised contact with us or Lily until her therapist deems it acceptable. They gladly accepted these stipulations. The family has had a mixed reaction to our decision. Sam's parents are relieved and thankful, hoping that this is the first step toward reconciling our shattered family. When we told Linda about our decision, she gave us a grateful expression. She hugged both of us, tears running down her cheeks. My parents, on the other hand, are concerned that we are being overly indulgent, leaving ourselves open to potential problems with Rachel. My father, in particular, was upset. He reminded me of the fear and tension I had felt during my pregnancy as a result of Rachel's conduct. It took a long conversation to help him grasp our point of view. Sam and I are attempting to focus on our new life with Lily. We have strengthened our home security by installing cameras and a new alarm system. It may appear paranoid, but given what transpired, we believe it is vital for our peace of mind. Jack has kept us posted on Rachel's progress. She is still at the psychiatric facility, but she is allegedly making slow but steady improvements. He claimed that she has expressed tremendous regret for her conduct during the baby shower, but we have not heard from her personally. I'm still processing my emotions about everything that has transpired. While I'm delighted we made a decision that could perhaps assist Rachel and heal our family, I can't get over my anxiety and distress. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to completely forgive Rachel or feel safe around her again. For the time being, we're taking things day by day and focusing on Lily and our small family. The future of our relationship with Rachel is uncertain, but we believe that with time and continuing therapy, some type of reconciliation is possible. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'd like to provide some last views on the situation. A lot has changed, and I believe this may be my final post regarding this phase of our lives. Lily is 7 months old and the light of our lives. She's starting to crawl and babble, and each day is a new adventure. Sam and I are fatigued, but happier than we have ever been. Every day, watching Sam with Lily reminds me of why I fell in love with him. He's very patient and compassionate, always ready with a goofy expression to make her laugh or a soothing voice when she's upset. Rachel was freed from the psychiatric facility approximately 3 months ago. Her physicians say she's made considerable progress in overcoming her despair, anxiety, and grief over her lost pregnancy. She is still undergoing outpatient therapy and following a consistent medication schedule. Rachel contacted us through Jack about a month after her release and asked to meet Lily. Sam and I were initially hesitant, but after discussing it with our therapist, yes, we began seeing one to help us process everything that had happened. We agreed to a brief supervised visit. The meeting was unpleasant, to say the least. It occurred in our living room, with Jack and Sam's parents present. Rachel was visibly apprehensive and struggled to communicate with us. She brought Lily a handmade blanket and apologized sincerely for her actions at the baby shower. She indicated that she had been in a very bad place psychologically and emotionally, and she deeply regretted her actions. Rachel held Lily for the first time, and I felt an odd combination of feelings. On the one hand, seeing her lovingly engage with my kid reminded me of our previous close friendship. On the other hand, I couldn't get over the vision of her lunging at me with a knife. I found myself tensing up whenever Rachel moved, even though I knew she wouldn't hurt Lily. While I appreciated her apologies, I found it difficult to fully accept. The memory of her coming at me with a knife is something I'll never forget. Sam seemed more open to forgiveness, but I could sense he was still guarded. He maintained a close eye on Rachel during the visit, never leaving her seat with Lily. Since then, we have had a couple more monitored visits. Each one gets a bit better, but I still have a long way to go before I'm comfortable leaving Lily alone with Rachel. We've settled into a monthly visitation schedule, always with Jack present and generally at Sam's parents' place. It's neutral territory, so everyone feels more at ease. Jack has been tremendously helpful throughout the entire process. He is always present during the visits and will quickly remove Rachel if she displays any signs of anxiety. He's also been going to therapy with Rachel to work on their relationship and process their shared grief over their baby's loss. The rest of the family is gradually readjusting to their new normal. Sam's parents are happy to have the family together again, but they respect our boundaries with Rachel. Linda's eyes light up with relief every time we all make it into the same room without incident. Sam's father has taken to playing peacekeeper, always ready with a joke or a change of subject when emotions mount. My parents remain suspicious, but are making an attempt for Lily's sake. They've started joining us at some of the family occasions, but I can tell they're constantly on high alert around Rachel. My mother, in particular, keeps a close eye on Rachel when she is near Lily. I love their protectiveness, even if it can add to the anxiety. Looking back on everything that has happened, I have conflicting emotions. While I'm relieved Rachel is receiving the assistance she requires, I can't help but worry what could have happened if we had detected her difficulties sooner. Could all of this have been avoided if we had been more alert? Some nights, I lie awake revisiting every encounter we had in the months preceding up to the baby shower, looking for clues we could have overlooked. At the same time, I've learned a lot about establishing boundaries and putting my family's safety and well-being first. I've also developed a better grasp of the intricacies of mental health disorders and how they affect entire families. It has increased my empathy, not only for Rachel, but also for others who may be battling silently. For now, we are cautiously optimistic about the future. We are taking things slowly with Rachel, always keeping Lily's best interests in mind. I'm not sure if our connection with Rachel will ever be the same, but we're eager to see where this new chapter leads us. Last week, we hosted a family supper at Sam's parents' home. It wasn't perfect, there were still awkward moments and tension, but it was the closest we'd gotten to normal in over a year. Watching Rachel assist Sam's mother in the kitchen or witnessing her giggle at one of Jack's jokes, I got flashes of the sister-in-law I once knew. It gives me hope that, with time and effort from all sides, we may create a new type of family dynamic. As for Sam and myself, The entire experience has brought us closer together. We've learned to rely on one another in new ways and to be more open about our worries and hopes. Every night, as we put Lily into bed, I am reminded how fortunate we are and how much we have to be thankful for. Thank you for following our story and for your support at this difficult time. Your guidance and encouragement have been helpful. While I hope to never have to post about such a tough issue again, I am glad for the support I have gotten here. If there's one thing I've taken away from this, it's that healing is possible, even in the most unexpected circumstances. After refusing to babysit my stepsister's kids, my dad threatened to cut me off, leading to uncovered family secrets and strained ties. I'm Sophia, 28F, and I've been dealing with some family trouble recently. My parents split when I was 10, and it was not a good experience. My mother moved out, and I lived with my father for several years. It was only the two of us. We were close, and I assumed we told each other everything, but as I got older, I realized there were many things my father withheld from me. When I was 16, my father introduced me to Linda, 50F. They had been dating for a time without informing me. I was hurt that he kept this a secret, but I attempted to be supportive. A few months later, they married, and Linda moved in with her daughter, Emma, 25F. The transition was difficult. I went from being an only kid to suddenly having a stepsister. Emma and I never really clicked. She was lively and outgoing, whereas I was more reserved. We were courteous to one another, but we never became close friends or anything like that. At 18, I moved out for college, relieved to get some space from my new family. I focused on my academics and met new people. After graduating, I found a job in the same city and decided to stay. I'd go to see my father and Linda on holidays, but that was about it. Emma and I scarcely communicated, just exchanging birthday texts and attending family dinners when I was in town. Fast forward to today. Emma recently came to my city with her 27-year-old husband Jake, and their two children, Liam, 4M, and Ava, 2F. Jake accepted a new position at a technology startup, so they relocated here. Emma does not work. She is a stay-at-home mom. When they first moved, my father called and requested me to assist them settle in. I was not delighted about it, but I agreed. I took them around the city, helped them select a suitable neighborhood, and even helped with part of the relocation. I believed that was the end of it, but I was mistaken. Emma began visiting my flat every evening with her children about a week after they relocated. She would ask me to look after them for an hour or two while she went errands. I initially accepted because I wanted to be nice, but it soon became a daily occurrence. I worked from home as a graphic designer, and while I was finished with work by the time she took the kids off, I value my alone time in the evening. I utilize that time to relax, work on personal projects, or socialize with friends. The kids are okay, but I'm not really a kid person. I don't know how to keep children entertained, and being around them always makes me nervous. I reminded Emma several times that she needed to hire a babysitter, but she always had an excuse. It's just for today, she'd remark. I'm still getting used to the city. I started to suspect she was taking advantage of me. Last Friday, I had planned to go out with my pals. We were celebrating my best friend's promotion, which I'd been looking forward to all week. I told Emma in the morning that I would be unable to watch the kids that evening. She said okay, and I assumed that was all. But at 6 p.m., just as I was about to leave, Emma arrived at my door with Liam and Ava. Before I could say anything, she handed me the kids and drove away. I tried calling her, but she did not answer. I even called Jake, but he did not respond. I had to postpone my plans and stay at home with the kids. I was infuriated. Emma had ruined my plans before, but this was the first time she fully ignored my refusal to babysit. I was trapped with the kids until 9 p.m., when Emma arrived to pick them up. When she arrived, I challenged her regarding her behavior. She pretended it was no big deal and claimed she had an emergency. When I pressed her for information, she was unclear and evasive. I warned her that this could not happen again and that she needed to get a proper babysitter. Emma became enraged and stated I was being selfish, and that families should assist one another out. That is when I lost my temper. I told her that we were not truly relatives. I explained that just because our parents married doesn't mean we had to be close. I informed her that we had scarcely spoken in years before she moved here, and now she was acting as if we were best friends. I told her I was done babysitting and that she shouldn't bring the kids over until invited. Emma left in tears. I felt awful, but also happy that I had finally established a clear boundary. I believed that was the end of it, but I was mistaken. The next day, my father called me. He was upset with me. He stated Emma had contacted him crying, accusing him of being nasty to her and the children. My father told me that I should apologize and continue to babysit Emma. He said that this is what families do for one another. I attempted to convey my side of the situation. I informed him about Emma taking advantage of me, repeatedly ruining my plans and never respecting my time or boundaries. But my father was not listening. He continued emphasizing that I should be more understanding and helpful. Then my father said something that deeply saddened me. He called me selfish and expressed disappointment in the person I had become. He told me that Linda and Emma were now my family, and I needed to accept it. He even mentioned how distant I had been since he married Linda, hinting that I still harbored a grudge. I was shocked. I told him they were his family, not mine, and that I was an adult capable of making my own decisions. I told him that I had my own life and obligations and I couldn't just drop everything to be Emma's on-call babysitter. This resulted in a major debate. My dad threatened to cut me off if I didn't apologize to Emma and resume babysitting. I felt hurt and enraged. I informed him I was self-sufficient and didn't need his money. I also suggested that if he wanted to cut me off over this, perhaps we weren't as close as I believed. My father ended the call by hanging up on me. Linda and other family members have since messaged me, accusing me of being unfair. They suggest that I be more empathetic of Emma's circumstances as a young mother in a new city. Some of my aunts have even called to say I'm pulling the family apart. Emma hasn't contacted me directly, but she has been writing on social media about how families should always be there for one another. She has been tweeting quotes about the value of sisters and how blood does not determine family. It appears like she is attempting to publicly guilt-trip me. I feel like I'm going mad. Am I truly in the wrong here? I don't think it's fair for Emma to expect me to be a free babysitter anytime she wants, and I don't think my father should threaten me about it. But I'm beginning to wonder whether I went too far in claiming Emma and Linda aren't my real family. Part of me feels guilty. Perhaps I could have been more patient with Emma. Perhaps I should have tried more to connect with her when we were younger. But another part of me is angry and resentful. I feel that my thoughts and boundaries are not being respected. I have always treasured my freedom. After my parents divorced, I learned to rely on myself. I worked hard in school, received a college scholarship, and have established a successful profession. I'm not used to having people rely on me in this way, and I'm not sure I want the responsibility. At the same time, I can't stop thinking about Liam and Ava. They're innocent in all of this, and I genuinely care about them. I don't want kids to feel rejected or undesired, but I also don't think it's good for them to have an aunt who dislikes babysitting them. I tried discussing this with some of my friends, but they seem divided. Some believe I'm being overly harsh and should try to work things out with Emma. Others believe that I'm correct in setting boundaries and Emma is entitled. I do not know what to do. Should I apologize? Should I stand my ground? I feel like this thing has spiraled out of control, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I don't want to lose my relationship with my father. But neither do I want to be taken advantage of. This scenario has caused me to question a lot about my family and myself. Am I really as selfish as my father claims? Have I been harboring bitterness for his remarriage without realizing it? Should I have worked more to develop a relationship with Emma over the years? I keep thinking about how things may have turned out differently if my mother was still present. She relocated across the nation after the divorce, and we don't communicate much. I wonder what she would say about all of this. I am at a loss. I believe that no matter what I do, someone will be upset with me. I want to do the right thing, but I don't know what that is anymore. Update 1. It's been almost 2 weeks since my last post, and things have only become more complicated. I'd like to thank everyone who responded and offered suggestions. It let me see things more clearly. After reading the comments, I decided to stand my ground. I did not apologize to Emma or begin babysitting again. This created some strained family relations. My father stopped communicating to me completely, and Emma continued to post passive-aggressive messages on social media about false family members and the value of being present for your nieces and nephews. The quiet from my father was especially difficult. We used to communicate at least once a week, but now there is nothing. I tried to convince myself that it was for the best and that I was creating good limits, but it still hurt. My stepmother, Linda, attempted to mediate the conflict. She contacted me several times, attempting to get me to reconcile with Emma and my father. She said she understood where I was coming from, but that family valued compromise. I appreciated her efforts, but I still felt as if everyone was rejecting my emotions. I immersed myself into my profession, taking on extra freelance projects to take my mind off the family problems. I also began going to the gym more frequently and took up a new hobby, painting. It was soothing to produce something lovely in the midst of my life's craziness. However, something unexpected occurred last week, which changed everything. I was in a neighborhood coffee shop working on a project when I overheard a familiar voice. It was Jake, Emma's husband. He was seated at a table with a woman I did not recognize. At first, I assumed it was a work colleague, but then I noticed Jake reach across the table and take the woman's hand. They spoke in quiet tones and looked at each other in a way that indicated this wasn't a nice meeting. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Jake was supposed to be at work, not having what appeared to be a love encounter with another woman. I sat there frozen, unsure what to do. Shall I confront him? Should I snap a photo as proof? In the end, I did not do either. I silently gathered my belongings and exited the coffee shop. I went home, my thoughts racing from what I just watched. I did not confront Jake. I wasn't sure whether I should tell Emma. Will she believe me? Our relationship was already fragile, and accusing her husband of adultery might only make matters worse. I chose to sit with the information for a day and consider what to do. The next evening, Emma called me. I almost didn't respond, assuming it was another attempt to guilt me into babysitting. But something prompted me to pick up. Emma was in tears and asked if she could come over. I consented, believing she might have learned about Jake. When she came, she was a complete wreck. Her eyes were red and puffy and she appeared to have not slept for days. But it was not about Jake at all. Emma admitted she had lied about running errands when she left the kids with me. She acknowledged seeing a therapist for postpartum depression and anxiety. Emma broke down while telling me her experience. She has struggled since Ava's birth, feeling overwhelmed and inadequate as a mother. She hadn't told anyone in the family because she felt humiliated and terrified of being judged. She left the kids with me during her therapy appointments. I was stunned. I felt a range of emotions: pity for Emma's situation, rage that she had deceived and taken advantage of me, and regret for how harshly I had judged her. I told Emma that, while I realized she was going through a difficult period, it was unacceptable for her to lie and dump her children on me without notice. We spoke for hours. Emma apologized for her conduct and for not being open about her issues. She promised to hire a proper babysitter for her sessions. I informed her that, while I couldn't be a regular babysitter, I would be happy to assist out on occasion if she gave me advance notice. As we spoke, I began to view Emma in a new light. I learned that despite her seemingly wonderful life, she struggled just like everyone else. It made me reflect on how little I understood about her life and how quickly I had judged her. Emma also discussed her emotions of loneliness after moving to the city. She stated she was thrilled to be closer to me, believing we could finally have the sisterly bond we had never had. She said she had pushed too hard and too quickly, and she apologized for not respecting my boundaries. I also conveyed my own feelings. I told her how I felt left out after Dad remarried and how I battled to fit into our new family dynamic. We chatted about our childhood, sharing recollections and opinions that we had never discussed before. Just as we were beginning to restore our relationship, I was faced with the decision of whether to inform Emma about what I observed with Jake. I debated the option, but in the end I chose to be honest with her. I gently informed her what I had seen in the coffee shop. Emma's reply was not what I expected. She didn't appear astonished or outraged. Instead, she became extremely silent before saying, "I know about Jake's meetings." It turns out that the woman Jake was meeting is his half-sister. Jake was adopted as a baby and had lately discovered his biological family. He had been meeting with his half-sister in secret since he was not ready to inform Emma or the rest of the family. He was concerned about how it may affect their family relationships, particularly with his adoptive parents. I was happy Jake was not cheating, but I was also frustrated by our family's concealment. I told Emma that all of this, her treatment, Jake's meetings, could have been avoided if everyone had simply been honest from the start. Emma agreed and said she'd speak with Jake about being more open with the family. She also pledged to be more open with me in the future. We concluded the evening on a brighter note than we had in weeks. The next day, I called my father. I informed him about Emma's troubles and how we had worked things out. I also told him that, while I was willing to have a relationship with Emma and occasionally help out with the kids, my limits needed to be respected. To my amazement, my father was understanding. He apologized for his reaction and acknowledged that he had put too much pressure on me. We promised to improve our communication and respect each other's boundaries more. We also talked about the past, including how his remarriage affected me and how we had grown apart over time. It was a challenging conversation, but it seemed like we were finally confronting topics we had been ignoring for too long. Things have calmed down, but I still feel like I'm walking on eggshells. There are numerous secrets and unsaid concerns in our family. I'm glad Emma and I were able to sort things out, but I have a feeling there will be more trouble. I'm trying to stay positive, but I'm also bracing myself for what might happen next. This entire experience has made me realize how little I knew about my family members. It's made me ponder what additional mysteries lie beneath the surface. For the time being, I'm working on gradually restoring my connections with Emma and my father. It's not easy, and there are still periods of tension, but it appears like we're headed in the right path. I'm discovering that family connections are complicated, and communication and honesty are essential. I'm also trying to strike a balance between being present for my family and preserving my own boundaries. It's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful that we can be family without compromising our distinct wants and identities. Update 2. It has been approximately a month since my last report, and I wish I could say that things have improved, but they have not. In reality, things have gotten a lot worse. Remember how I started to feel like more drama was about to unfold? Well, I was correct, but I could not have foreseen what happened next. Emma called me last week, frantic. She was in tears and hardly intelligible. When I calmed her down, she informed me that she had received some horrible news. Jake hasn't simply met his half-sister. He's had an affair with her. Emma grew suspicious of Jake's numerous meetings and decided to follow him. One day, she noticed him meeting the woman at a hotel rather than the customary coffee shop. She approached him, and he confessed to the affair. He attempted to excuse it by claiming that he felt a connection with his half-sister that he had never had before, but Emma was understandably appalled and devastated. I was shocked. I felt bad for not pressing harder when I initially saw Jake with the woman. I attempted to console Emma as best I could over the phone, but she was distraught. She explained that she was leaving Jake and asked if she and the kids could stay with me for a bit. Despite our previous disagreements, I couldn't send her away in her time of need. I agreed to let them stay. Emma and the kids moved in with me the next day. It's been a tough transition. My flat isn't really designed for 2 young children, and Emma is still really emotional. She alternates between tears and aggressive outbursts. I'm trying to be supportive, but it's taking its toll on me. To make matters worse, Jake has been bugging Emma with continuous phone calls and messages. He's even popped up at my flat several times, causing havoc in the corridor. I had to threaten to contact the police to get him to go. It has been distressing for everyone, especially the children, who do not understand what is going on. Another explosive went off in the midst of the mayhem. My father contacted me, seeming anxious. He said he needed to tell me something important and asked if he could come over. When he arrived, he dropped a bombshell that shocked me to the core. It turns out Jake's half-sister is also my half-sister. My father admitted to having a brief romance with Jake's biological mother years ago, before meeting my stepmother. This woman gave birth to a daughter, who Jake has been having an affair with. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I heard. My father had held this secret for nearly 30 years. He stated he only found out recently when Jake's half-sister took a DNA test and it matched some of our family members. My father got in touch with her and learned the truth. I felt as if my entire universe was crumbling. Everything I believed I knew about my family was a lie. I was angry with my father for keeping this a secret, at Jake for betraying me, and at myself for failing to anticipate any of this. I haven't told Emma about the recent revelation yet. She's already coping with so much, and I'm worried this may push her over the brink. But I know I'm going to have to tell her someday. The previous several days have been a haze. I've been trying to keep things regular for the kids while simultaneously supporting Emma and dealing with my own thoughts about this new sister. I've taken some time off work to deal with everything, but I'm not sure how long I can do it. I'm at a loss on what to do next. My flat has become a refuge for my sister and her children, a safe haven from her cheating husband, and it now feels like the hub of a decades-long family scandal. I'm trying to keep everything together, but I feel like I'm drowning in secrets and lies. I'm not sure how our family will ever heal from this. The trust has been damaged, and I'm not sure it can be repaired. I'm thinking about going to therapy to deal with all of this, but for the time being, I'm just taking it day by day. I've tried to contact some friends for help, but it's difficult to explain the scenario without seeming like I'm making it up. How would you inform someone that your brother-in-law is having an affair with your hidden half-sister? It sounds like something from a horrible soap drama. I am also concerned about the long-term ramifications of all of this. What will happen to Emma and the children? Will Jake seek custody? And what about my half-sister? Should I try to reach her? Do I really want to know her? Given the circumstances, it's also worth considering how this may influence my relationship with my father. I'm upset that he kept this a secret for so long, but I understand that he was probably terrified and ashamed. Even so, knowing what he did makes it difficult to look at him in the same way. For the time being, my primary emphasis is on Emma and the children. Despite the volatility, I'm attempting to provide a stable atmosphere for them. It's not simple, but it seems like the proper thing to do. I'm also attempting to care for myself. I've started journaling to help me process my emotions, and I'm making an effort to do something I enjoy every day. Even if it's as simple as reading a book or going for a walk. I know I'll have to make some important decisions shortly about Emma's predicament, my connection with my father, and whether or not to contact my half-sister. But for now, I'm just trying to get through each day. If anyone has been through something similar and has any suggestions, I'd be grateful. This entire scenario is daunting, and I could use all of the help I can get. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and much has changed. After the shock of the discoveries subsided, we had to cope with the aftermath. I eventually told Emma that Jake's affair partner is our half-sister. She was devastated all over again, but it also provided her with the necessary closure. She sought for divorce and received a restraining order against Jake. The legal procedure has been messy, but Emma is sticking firm. Emma and her children remained with me for approximately a month before she found a tiny apartment of her own. She began working part-time at a local bookstore and is gradually reconstructing her life. This experience has actually brought us closer together. I occasionally help her with the kids, but only on my terms, and she respects my boundaries. We haven't contacted our recently discovered half-sister. We aren't ready for it yet, and I'm not sure we ever will be. The circumstances of her existence, as well as her acts with Jake, make it difficult to consider having a relationship with her. My relationship with my father has been strained. I was upset with him for hiding such a significant secret for so long. We've had several lengthy, painful discussions on trust, honesty, and the consequences of his decisions. He has been visiting a therapist to deal with his shame and learn how to regain trust with his family. It is a slow process, but we are making progress. I've started visiting a therapist to deal with all of my inner problems. It's helped me go through my feelings and set reasonable boundaries. I am learning that it is acceptable to prioritize my own mental health and well-being, even when family members are in crisis. One unanticipated result of all this is that I've reconnected with my mother. After everything came out, I contacted her because I needed someone to talk to who wasn't personally engaged in the situation. We've had some wonderful discussions and she's been a source of comfort throughout this. We're striving to restore our relationship and it's been great to have her back in my life. I've also made significant changes in my life. I decided to take a sabbatical and travel. I needed to go away from the family drama and rediscover myself. I'm writing this post from a modest cafe in Europe, where I've spent the last month. This distance has helped me gain perspective. I've come to learn that, while family is important, it is not everything. People who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries and will not pressure you to sacrifice your ideals or well-being. I don't know what the future holds for my family. The lost trust will take a long time to recover, if at all. But right now, I'm focusing on myself, healing and growing. I'm learning to define family on my own terms and surround myself with people who bring happiness into my life. Emma and I communicate regularly. She's doing better now, focused on her children and her new career. The divorce proceedings are ongoing, but she's managing them with strength I didn't know she possessed. We are arranging a trip with the kids next summer, something to look forward to. Jake, as far as I know, has left the city. His affair with our half-sister ended horribly, and he's been attempting to reconcile with his adoptive family. I don't know all the specifics, and honestly, I don't want to. My father and I are progressively restoring our relationship. We talk once a week, and while things haven't returned to normal, they're improving. He's trying to be more open and honest, not just with me, but with everyone in the family. This entire event has taught me a great deal about resilience, forgiveness, and the value of honesty. It has also taught me that it is never too late to establish boundaries and prioritize your own well-being. Thank you to everyone who has followed my tale and offered advice along the way. Your support has meant more than you realize. If there's one thing I've taken away from this, it's that life may take you by surprise in unexpected ways. All we can do is strive to approach each day with honesty, courage, and self-respect.